Check, check, check.
Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
I actually think the game could be a little louder. Maybe not that loud. Let's go with that. Okay, everything looks okay. We're good. I'm gonna shift over a little bit so I am in shot. We're gonna load our save spot. Let's see. Oh yeah, we were talking to Sholmes over here. Hair lock. Oh right, I was doing voices for these. Your inference is backward. Backward? My trusty biographer records my greatest detecting achievements and chronicles them in the magazine. You have a biographer, do you? Doesn't everyone? I can't do a British accent to save my life. Mine goes by the name of Dr. Wilson, presently keeping shop in London. Dr. Wilson? Honestly, I might just drop the voices. They are like hard to keep up with. I must say, thanks to that publication, I've been fantastically busy of late. Why, this very moment, I am returning from Asia, having solved the mystery of a cursed royal crown. I can't work out whether I should take this man seriously or not. Deduction, you see, is to me a science, a logical reasoning in its purest form. A science? Really? The astute observer notices even the most subtle of reactions in his subject. A furtive glance, a twitch of a muscle, a slight inclination of the posture, fingernails, arm sleeves, furrows in the skin. All these things are data. Right. And the trained logician makes deductions from this data in the blink of an eye. The ultimate conclusion is, without fail, the truth. As I demonstrated only a few short moments ago. How can he look me in the eye and claim that? It's weird. I've got like this bump or something on my tongue, and it feels weird. Like the side of my tongue. You know what it is? I bit my tongue earlier, and it's probably like swelling or something now. That's probably why that feels uncomfortable. So you see, I have a turn both for observation and for deduction and fame. That is what makes me the one and only Herlock Holmes. Or Sholmes. Tell me about Kazuma's death. Have you managed to deduce anything about this particular case yet? Have I managed to deduce anything, my dear fellow? Who do you suppose discovered the culprit in his most cunning hiding place? That's right. It was none other than the great detective before you now, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Ah, I see. In other words, I'm in these now because of him. When I became anxious about Kazuma-sama this morning, I summoned all of the crew members to force the cabin door open. And I concealed myself among their number, gaining entrance to the scene of the crime. Yes, luckily for everyone, the great detective Herlock Sholmes was on board. And the handcuffs seem to be an excellent fit, Mr. Naruhodo. Arg! The very moment I laid eyes on the scene, two facts were immediately apparent to me. Oh really? Two facts, you say? Two facts? Mr. Sholmes, tell us please, what two facts were apparent to you when you came into the cabin this morning? Ah yes, but first let us be precise. The two facts in question were immediately apparent to me. Yes, I understand, but what were they? Allow me to elucidate. The two facts that I deduced from a mere momentary glance at the scene of the crime were as follows. Number 1. The cabin was locked from within, rendering escape of the culprit out of the question. Number 2. The victim was Russian, and killed following a dispute with an acquaintance. Well, one of these is wrong. Hold on, Mr. Sholmes, what made you think the victim was Russian? Probably the Russian writing. Observe the dying message left by the victim on the floor. That is Russian for the Russian word for wardrobe. Do you really think Kazuma-sama could have left a dying message in Russian? In their final moments, many find their native tongue filling their head. For this young man, Russian. Definitely not the case here. Initially, I considered Gardrob may be the name of the killer. A certain Robert Gard, perhaps. But in the interest of thoroughness, I decided it would be wrong not to look inside the wardrobe there at least. Where you found Mr. Naruhodo sleeping soundly. Quite so. I found you, the renowned Russian revolutionary killer. Why is it that I'm Russian too? I observed that you were wearing the same attire as the victim. In other words, you were acquainted. And if my memory serves, that outfit is the traditional dress of the Russian people. It's definitely not. Our school uniforms are the traditional dress of the Russian people? I had no idea. And I had no idea a detective could get something so wrong. I took a photograph of the victim and the message that I might analyze it for possible hidden details. Are we gonna get that picture? It was taken immediately after the young man was discovered, before the body was removed. Kazuma had already been taken away when I had woken up. This is the first time I've actually seen him like this. Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, yes, thank you. Could I ask you something, Mr. Sholmes? You mentioned Russian before as well, did you? You know, when you said I was a fearsome revolutionary fleeing from Russia and all that. Ah, yes, the train of reasoning that led me to the truth. Would you mind explaining that train of reasoning to me, do you think? I'm not even gonna try with these Russian words, certainly if it interests you. How many times? I'm not Russian and I don't speak Russian. Your deduction just now. Can we talk about your deductions before? The things you concluded about me, I mean. The now famously accurate, troubling predicament you find yourselves in. Actually, it was the other details that I was more hoping to discuss. You know, the merciless Russian revolutionary, an assassin of 16 part. Yes, the more sordid details. It was a fairly commonplace deduction. Here we have this morning's paper. The main headline reads, Revolutionary villain Bolshevik flees Russia via Shanghai. This vessel made a port call at Shanghai yesterday, and last night the young Russian was murdered. Since when was Kazuma a Russian? Sounds like Mr. Sholmes has concluded he was Russian based on what was written on the floor. Sorry, this tongue bump is like really bothering me. It was a simple act of reasoning to realize that the culprit of this crime was the same merciless revolutionary, one who would kill the very man who helped him to escape after his true identity was discovered. Yes, you, violent Bolshevik. No, no, no. How could it be me? I don't look anything like this man, just look at his face. Well, you are a fearsome revolutionary after all. Therefore, you've no doubt learned to revolutionize your appearance as well. Please. And I might add, your name does not appear on the ship's passenger list, need I say more. Well, that's because I'm a stowaway. What about the other details? The 16 victims of assassination and blowing up the Crystal Tower. Ah yes, the journalist clearly interviewed the man and printed all those particulars in the article. The deeds the man has perpetrated thus far and those he is plotting. Yes, everything about this revolutionary Bolshevik was included. There can be no mistake. Do revolutionaries usually agree to interviews with newspaper reporters, I wonder? And what about the part where you said I was just returning from Afghanistan? Also quite clearly stated here in this article, Bolshevik has recently returned after a period of subversive activities in a war-torn region of Afghanistan. Where even is it anyway? This Afghanistan place. Here, take the paper for yourself as a little memento of this great deduction. Thank you. I've absorbed all that is of interest to me within its pages, but I see no rubbish bin nearby. And you may find the article on the back page of interest as well. On the back, cast your eye over it sometime if the interest takes you. You may need someone to interpret. It's all written in Russian. I couldn't hope to read it. But I suppose it wouldn't hurt just to glance at the article. Maybe there might be a picture or two. So let's check that out, like, before we get into this too deep. Does using this magnifying glass do anything, or does it just, like, let us zoom in on things? I can't find anything out of place. This is interesting. We found something relevant, Naruhodo-san. Well, no, I mean, it looks like it might be interesting. I can't read a single word, I'm afraid. No, nor can I, but look at this picture. Perhaps it's about a beautiful young Russian princess, do you think? She is very pretty, isn't she? I suppose you enjoy articles like this, do you? I don't know. I can't make any sense of it. Ah, I'm glad you've noticed this article. Ah, allow me to give you a short summary of its contents. Oh, thank you. Pops up everywhere, this Mr. Sholmes. It's about the disappearance of a young lady last night. Renowned prima ballerina of the Novovich Ballet disappears from Shanghai. During a performance in Shanghai, the famous dancer was reported missing. She's, of course, the talented young Nikolina Pavlova. Why are Russian names so hard to remember? I mean, these haven't been that hard to remember, like Bolshevik and Pavlova. It would appear the woman was in costume when she was found to be missing from her dressing room, wearing the diamond tiara you see pictured, which is worth some 20,000 rubles. Oh, how much is 20,000 rubles? I have no idea, but I'm quite sure it must be an unbelievable sum of money. Susano's San's eyes are shining like the diamonds themselves. The tiara is the property of the Novovich Ballet. It would seem the director is beside herself with worry. Yes, I'm not surprised. The company is most anxious to recover both Miss Pavlova and the valuable tiara. They've requested international assistance at all ports with sailing to Great Britain. Could this be another case of a Russian fleeing his or her country? It does seem to be the Russian thing to do. I'm not even going to dignify that with a response, Mr. Naruhodo. Before we started talking, you were examining Kazuma's desk, weren't you? Kazuma? Ah, yes, the victim. Did you notice anything useful, anything at all? Observe for a moment the desktop of the victim. We see that the victim was engaged in penning some text. London Diary. Kazuma was keeping notes of the trip. But I don't think you should read his private writings. It could upset people. tragic. And something you ought to perhaps elucidate before the act of reading. You mean you read it already? It is my business to know what other people do not. Yes, believe it or not, I know a smattering of Japanese. Oh, I see. Well, you're about to know what a Susano Takedown is. Susano-san, aren't you going to throw the detective with one of your trademark takedowns? I'm sorry, Naruhodo-san, what on earth do you mean? Life is so unfair. Anyway, to return to the matter at hand, namely this diary belonged to the victim. It would appear the final sentence is incomplete, as if the author were cut short. Tell me what is the nature of the writing, pray be precise to the details. Oh, but I thought you knew Japanese. A smattering, dear boy, a smattering. Sayonara, bonsai, mikado, nado. I trust you're suitably impressed. So let's see. Goodbye, a type of tree, an old term for emperor, and I don't know what nado means. Ha. But this diary is littered with complicated-looking characters of which I can read precisely none. Ah ha 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 ha. So what was all that showing off about before then? If you would be so kind as to show me, I would be happy to read it to you, Mr. Sholmes. I'm much obliged, my dear madam. Hmm. 1:23 a.m. I can hear a faint whistling sound. A whistling sound. These are very deep waters. Pray, go on. The second sentence reads, 1:35 a.m. What looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. A speckled band? What on earth does that mean? I have no idea. I've never heard that expression before. The ventilator grill, you say? The man was presumably referring to the lattice there on the wall, which connects to the adjoining cabin. Yes, the adjoining cabin. So, I believe I've given you enough to consider for the time being, at least. Do you have somewhere to go? As it happens, the victim's writing in his diary have piqued my interest. The matter warrants further investigation, I believe. And if I am still too long, the seasickness takes hold. Oh, I suppose you're thinking of investigating the cabin next door, which the ventilator connects to. Great detectives are a curious breed. Our minds rebel at stagnation. We crave mental exaltation. So yes, I intend to investigate, since the truth will become clear soon enough. Do you think perhaps that we could go with you? No, that would be somewhat complicated. What? But why? A simple glance at your wrist should reveal the answer. Oh, these. After all, you're the prime suspect in this matter, no? There's no point in trying to turn it into a question. You're the one who decided I was the culprit in the first place. Whatever do you mean? I have no recollection of naming you the culprit at any point. You must be joking. You just said it only a moment ago. Dear me, you are clearly misguided I would have no cause to say such a thing. Well, actually, Mr. Sholmes, I did hear you say that too. You're quite sure? Well, that's very strange. I wouldn't have said you had the face of a criminal, you know? Not really. So what, were you looking at my knees before? Some great detective you are. Well, anyway, that was then and this is now. What do you mean? What I mean, sir, is this. If you are the culprit, you must play the part more convincingly, roll over and accept your fate. Ah ha 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 ha. Now he's just being plain rude. I agree. And off he goes, having just laughed in my face. His sense of humor is as twisted as his name. Naruhodo-san, what are you just standing there for? We must go and investigate the cabin next door as well. Aren't you forgetting something? What about these? There's no way I can... Hiya! After Kazuma-sama spent his dying moments struggling to leave us a clue, you're willing to give up? You're gonna just roll over and accept your fate? Ugh, as if you gave me any choice in the rolling over part. I think we still have some investigation to finish off in here first, don't we? Let's carry on examining what we can in this cabin while we wait for a chance to slip next door. Good idea. The situation doesn't look good for me, but there are still things I can do to help myself, and I owe it to Kazuma to do everything I can to find a way out of this, and bring the real culprit to justice. Oh, I've just been informed that our new dog jumped up on the sofa with my girlfriend. That's very nice. Is something wrong, Naruhodo-san? Oh no, it's just that crewman standing by the door. I can't help feeling like I've seen him somewhere before. Oh yes, you're right, he does look familiar. Excuse me, sir. Yes, what can I do for you? I recognize that face, but it can't be. It is him. I didn't know you were here, Inspector Hosanaga. Hello again. What are you doing here? I think that should be my line. I was so stunned when I saw you, my heart stopped. Nearly stopped, I hope. I received some special orders to go undercover as a member of the crew and board this ship. Again. You certainly seem to enjoy undercover work, Inspector. If there's anything I can do to help you, please ask. I never expected to see this man on board, but perhaps his presence can help me out of this hopeless situation. So let's converse special orders. So what are your special orders this time, Inspector? Yes, and why are you dressed as a member of the crew? I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I take full responsibility. For what? My orders were to act as Asogi-san's bodyguard. It was Minister of Justice Jikoku who pushed for this overseas study tour to go ahead, and he entrusted me with ensuring that Asogi-san reached Great Britain without being assassinated. Assassinated? How could that even have been a possibility? I'm not sure. But these are complicated times. There are tensions between the world's greatest powers. Minister Jigoku said we should be prepared for all eventualities. This is incredible. I don't believe it. Kazuma-san was assassinated? Obviously, we couldn't give Asogi-san a visible security escort, which is why I'm undercover now, posing as one of the crew. I see. And I didn't take my eyes off him the entire time we've been on board, from morning until night, every day. But I never imagined it would happen here inside his own cabin, not here on the first-class deck. I've failed miserably at my assignment, and Asogi-san is dead as a result. I'm a disgrace. All I can do is humbly apologize. Inspector. So if there's anything at all that I can do to help now, just say the word. Permission to investigate. We're doing what we can to investigate Kazuma's death ourselves. I thought you might be. You didn't do it, did you? You're not the killer. Of course not. We'd really like to investigate the cabin next door. Yes, so we need to be allowed out of this cabin. I'm sorry, but we've been deemed a risk to the ship's safety if you move to even touch the handle of the cabin door. That stormy-looking seaman there would surely snap your neck in two. I suppose I'm not just a stowaway now, they think I'm a murderer as well. Would it be possible to give me something to work with, do you think? I'm going to need something persuasive. What do you mean? If I had a solid reason why the next door cabin should be investigated, for example, I'd do everything I could to persuade the captain to allow it. Really, I'd lay my life on the line if I had to. And I don't see how. There may be a way. What? Really? Think of how you tried to persuade me of your innocence, Naruhodo-san, by presenting me with a piece of evidence that you already had in your possession. Evidence. It's just the same as when you are in court. You must have done it many times during your trial. Simply select the present panel and choose some evidence that Inspector Hosanaga could use. It's evidence that would give us a viable reason to investigate the next door cabin, is it? Alright, yes. I think I might know what we can use. Let's see if I can present the detective with the evidence he needs to persuade the captain. So we just need to present Kazuma's diary, right? What's that? It's Kazuma's diary. Just before he died, Kazuma-sama wrote something rather strange in his diary. Strange? In what way? He wrote, what looks like some kind of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. A speckled band? That is strange. Guess we're still trying to work out what he meant by that, but what I'd like to know is... Don't tell me the ventilator is it. You're very astute, Inspector. That ventilator clearly joins to the next door cabin. That's right, so if we could investigate in there, we might be able to work out what the speckled band was. Alright then. I can't leave this cabin at the moment. I'm stuck here until we arrive at the next port. The captain has given me strict orders to guard the scene of the crime, you see. I'll have to entrust the investigation to you. Really? You're willing to do that? Yes, as long as you don't leave the first-class cabin area. I'm afraid I can't remove those handcuffs, though. But what about the captain? Aren't you going against his direct orders? I'm a man of my word. And I promise you that I'll lay my life on the line if that's what it takes to convince the captain. After all, I failed to keep Asogi-san safe. This is the least I can do. Thank you. Let's seize the moment then, Naruhodo-san. Just select move and we can leave this cabin at last. So, if we go to move, first class passageway. Whew, I'm finally out of that cabin. I have to admit, this isn't quite what I was expecting. It's less spacious out here than I thought it would be. And this is the most luxurious accommodation. Yes, indeed. Kazuma-sama was being sent on the study tour by the government. That's why he was being put up in a first-class cabin. Even still, this is about twice as large as my accommodation in steerage. Really? That must be awful. Oh, look over there. That's another crewman keeping watch, and he looks enormous even if he's just sitting down. The door next to him leads to the second-class accommodation. I suppose he's making sure that no one comes in here who shouldn't. I suppose, like people in handcuffs. Naruhodo-san, you look like a little boy visiting a toy shop for the first time. I would have thought you'd be used to the ship by now. We've been at sea for 2 weeks already. I mean, we were kind of stowaways, though. We didn't get to see much of it. Well, yes, I know, but the thing is, I was inside Kazuma's trunk when I first came aboard, and ever since then I've been shut up inside that little wardrobe. It must have been a very trying time for you. Please don't give me that pitying look. So let's examine. Like, what's this thing? Ah, a trap for catching mice. Yes, we have plenty of those back home in Japan. Although they seem to be using a lump of chalk or something as bait. Let me see. Yes, I think that's what is called cheese. It's made from the milk of cows. Cheese? I wonder what that tastes like. You can't eat it, Naruhodo-san. The trap will snap shut on your fingers. Really? But... I suppose you're right. You weren't actually going to try it, were you? All I've had to eat for the past couple of weeks is Kazuma's leftovers. You don't know how hungry I've been in that wardrobe. Poor you. I'll find a little snack for you later. Let's see. First class cabin number 1. Yeah, that's our cabin. Not our cabin, it's Kazuma-san's. Sorry? Your accommodation is confined to the wardrobe inside the cabin. You know how to make a stowaway feel small, don't you? As small as the wardrobe I've been calling home. These cabins are the finest on the ship. My own cabin in steerage is number 539, by the way. 500 and... How many cabins are there? What's this alarm? It's a very pleasing shape, isn't it? That's the emergency alarm. It's probably best not to touch it. Oh, an alarm. It says press only in times of emergency. It looks as though it sets alarm bells ringing all over the ship and brings the vessel to a complete stop. What are you doing, Naruhodo-san? You mustn't touch it. But this is an emergency situation. Just look at these handcuffs. You know full well that's not what the alarm is for. If you were to bring this vessel to a standstill for no good reason, it'd be an even worse situation. I wish everything would just stop, the ship included. If you have to do something foolish, at least make it something that doesn't affect anyone else. That's like a good bit of like, I would say, life advice. Like if you're gonna do something wild, like because you feel like you have to, at least make sure it's like not gonna do anything to anyone else. This is it. This is the cabin next to ours, the one the ventilator connects to. This is the ventilator from which Kazuma-sama wrote that he saw a speckled band emerging. Maybe whoever's in this cabin can help solve that particular mystery. Let's ask. Oh, excuse me, we need to get inside this cabin here. The sailor's eyes speak volumes. They're clearly saying, keep out. That's what I wrote on the sign we put over the wardrobe doors. Although this man's version is definitely more effective. Doesn't look like he's going to let us pass. That's a problem. Ship section? This looks like a plan of the SS Burya. It shows each deck, look. The Burya is a large-scale steamship with a triple-skinned hull. What a marvel of engineering. Well, it's been playing on my mind for a while, actually, but how is that such a huge... How is it that such a huge lump of metal doesn't just sink to the bottom of the ocean? Oh, it's really quite simple, Naruhodo-san. It is? Well, consider the Japanese archipelago. The islands of Japan? Yes, they're not metal, but they are enormous lumps of earth. Many, many, many times larger than the ship. And they don't sink, do they? They've been floating happily on the sea since the gods created them. Oh, I suppose so. I don't think islands float, though. They're like just lumps of earth that stick out of the sea. That's a huge book on top of the table there, and there's a pen next to it. Yes, that looks like the ship's log. Shall we have a look through it? The writing is so neat and precise. Every detail about the voyage has been meticulously recorded. You wouldn't expect a rough and ready sailor to have such beautiful handwriting. And nothing. No reaction at all. I thought he might appreciate the compliment. I'm not sure that rough and ready is much of a compliment, Naruhodo-san, even to a sailor. Anyway, last night's log is mostly blank. Presumably that means there was nothing to report. Or does it? Let's investigate the sailor. Excuse me, but could I ask you something? You little stowaway murderer. That wasn't a good start, was it? Alright, let me try instead. Good day, Mr. Sailor. I'm sorry to trouble you, but could I perhaps ask something of you? You little third-class lady's maid. Oh. We seem to have caught the sailor on a bad day, Susano-san. I am not sailor, my mother gave me name. I am senior crewman Biff Stroganoff. I'm loving these names. Alright, Beef Stroganoff. What do you have to say to us? The best thing is just to avoid eye contact, I think. First class cabin area. Mr. Stroganov, about this first class cabin area. Here we are in finest part of Burya steamship for very important persons. What sort of very important persons? Government officials, kings and queens traveling in secret, many important persons. This is why I'm always guarding this place. Gosh, that's amazing. But somehow I let stupid stowaways inside. I want to pick you up and throw you in ocean, but Stroganoff is not animal. Thank you. If I might, I was wondering... Is the cabin next to Mr. Osogi's currently occupied? Ah! Susano-san, did you understand that? It sounded like da. I think it's probably Russian for yes. Or no. Genius. It is not permitted to visit other cabins without invitation. Well, it sounds like there is somebody in the next door cabin at least. Yes, it's tantalizing. Passenger in the next door cabin. Could you tell us who's traveling in the cabin next to Mr. Osogi's? His name is Mr. Grimsby Roylott. He is very important Western gentleman. A Western gentleman? Do not think about it. He has nothing to do with murder of student boy. How can you be so sure about that? Mr. Roylott is authentic Western gentleman. Such a man would have no interest in lowly students from insignificant Far East Islands. That was harsh. Could you tell us when Mr. Roylott came aboard? That is not your business. Even though we've been at sea for 2 weeks now, and I've been in Kazuma's cabin the entire time, I've never once heard anything from the next door cabin, or even felt like there's anyone there. Well, presumably, since this gentleman is occupying one of the first-class cabins, it must be rather important, is that right? That is not your business. Last night. Are you on watch here all the time? Seaman Stroganov? Da, all time. So criminals like you cannot come in or get out. I wonder, could you tell us anything about last night at all? It is sad about Student Boy. Were you on watch last night as well? Of course. And did you notice anything at the time? Anything unusual? Het. Susano-san, did you understand that? It was clearly a no. So nothing unusual, nothing at all. You didn't hear any strange noises, or sense anything was wrong in some way. I said no. Sorry. I'm not so sure. I could have sworn that he wouldn't catch my eye for a moment there. This is enough. I cannot say more now. Oh, it's time for me to report to Captain. You must return to cabin. Yes, all right. Bulkhead to second class area is staying locked at all times. You escape when the lobster whistles on top of the mountain, or as English say, when pigs fly. Yes, I understand. Good, now we can investigate this area properly, shall we? Definitely. So can we read the ship's log now that he's gone? A book on top of the table there really is huge. There's a pen with it too. Yes, I'm sure that's the ship's log. Shall we have a little look through it? writing is so neat and precise. Every detail about the voyage has been meticulously recorded. Anyway, look here. Last night's log is mostly blank. Okay, so most of this is probably going to be the same. Let's just head for the door. This is it. This is the cabin next to ours, the one the ventilator connects to. The ventilator from which Kazuma-sama wrote he saw a speckled band emerge. Maybe whoever's in this cabin can help us solve the mystery. Let's ask. Knock knock. I actually think I'm going to turn off autoplay. I thought about it, but I want to be able to read these at my pace. No answer. We're out of luck, it seems. There's no one in there to help with our inquiries. How annoying. Ah! What was that? It came from inside the cabin. Such a high-pitched scream, it must have been a woman. Stand aside. I'm about to break the door down. Mr. Sholmes, I shan't be stopped. When the fit is on me, I revel in kicking at doors off their hinges. Please wait, Mr. Sholmes. The door doesn't appear to be bolted. It doesn't? Then how the deuce can I dispatch this muscular urge? What, pray, can I kick? I think we should go in. There's no time to think about stress relief. Who are you? A Western gentleman. This man looks Russian to me. We heard a woman scream. A woman? Don't be absurd. As you can see, there's nobody but me in this cabin. True, this old man does seem to be the only person in here, but in that case, who just screamed? Get out, all of you now. Please excuse the intrusion, but you're Mr. Grimsby Roylott, I believe. Yes, that's me, and you are... I am the one and only the actual Herlock Sholmes. You've heard of me, no doubt? No. I am a great detective among great detectives, one who adorns the cover of popular magazines, no less. So I assure you, you may trust me completely. The man uses that magazine like a business card. A detective? I do not trust detectives. I distinctly heard a scream emanating from within these walls. But there wouldn't appear to be a lady concealing herself within the wardrobe this time. Might I be so bold as to ask you to open that small traveling case? What? Don't be stupid. Could anyone fit in a small trunk like that? Well, it's quite fashionable these days, is it not? Traveling inside one's trunk. Don't look at me. Oh my, did you see that, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes. The case just shook. Leave now, otherwise I'll call the steward. So this is Kazuma's neighbor, Mr. Grimsby Roylott. There's no doubt about it, this strange Russian man is hiding something. I couldn't agree more. Let's see if we can find some clues before that burly sailor returns. What do you think you're doing? This is my cabin. Get out. Could we just have a quick look inside your traveling case, perhaps? No. What a pity. I think we're out of luck. I think you're right. There doesn't appear to be anything more we can do. I agree, but there may be someone else who can help. Perhaps that great detective could get somewhere with Mr. Roylott. So let's examine him. Do you have a moment, please, Mr. Sholmes? You need only address me as Sholmes. That's what I just did, isn't it? Well, Mr. Sholmes, what were you doing in there? Why, I was resting, of course. Resting? Indeed, I was contemplating our sea voyage from within the confines of the wardrobe, waiting for the inevitable time. We would need to call my great powers of deduction into service. It would seem the hour is upon us now. The time has come. Am I mistaken? Well, no, actually, you're spot on for once. Observe closely. Our Russian host in this cabin, Mr. Roylott, is clearly trying to hide something. And do you know what the most effective weapon to use against a Russian hiding a secret? Why? The truth, of course. Though it should be pointed out that such methods are not exclusively for the Russians. Right. Can you imagine how the Russians will react when the secret he guards is so closely is exposed? Would you like to witness it? Oh yes, please. Well then, what you are about to see may well astound you. For I am about to apply my great detective's greatly admired great deduction to the case. Could this man be a more hackneyed portrayal of a dubious Russian? I ask you. What? From time to time it occurs to me. Is the fellow dubious on account of his Russianness, or Russian on account of his dubiousness? I really don't think either of those things should be occurring to you, or anyone. That's right, and Mr. Sholmes. I know this man's beard and dark glasses are hard to ignore, especially on first meeting, but I once read, it is a capital mistake to theorize before you have all the evidence. It biases the judgment. I must have complete silence. What are you doing? Why are you peering into my face like that? Just as I thought, yes, I have quite made up my mind now. There can be no other explanation that accommodates all the facts. Mr. Roylott, I have reached two incontrovertible conclusions. What do you mean? Number one, your true identity is that of a villain. Using those shears, you are about to end the existence of something most dear. Are you not? Huh. And number two, the other conclusion I have drawn, you are, at this very moment no less, in the midst of committing a most grievous crime. Beneath that beard, your mouth quivers with nervous tension as you realize you have been discovered. Does it not? Arg! Oh, Naruhodo-san, I never imagined I would witness one of Mr. Sholmes' great deductions with my own eyes. That was a great deduction? Nothing can deceive Mr. Sholmes. In a single glance, he can deduce all there is to know about a person. What? What ineffable twaddle. Oh yes, I've read about it countless times in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes, and now I've experienced the astonishing impact of his great deduction firsthand. This is like a dream come true. I can hardly believe it, but all the color has drained from Mr. Roylott's face. It looks like somehow both of Mr. Sholmes' conclusions were right. How could I possibly know such things, you wish to say? Very well then. I shall elucidate. I shall explain how it was that I arrived at this pair of conclusions. So do I cordially invite you upon a journey of logical discovery. Let us board the train of reasoning. Put plainly, let's work through my deductions together. The great deduction, the game is afoot. Topic 1. Old man's identity. So the dubious-looking Russian, Mr. Roylott, obviously what catches the eye in the first place, is the enormous pair of shears in your hand. Now we ask ourselves, what could you possibly want with such an implement? The answer, of course, is staring us in the face. You are on the verge of using the shears to cut away that copious beard you sport. Now moving on. The question then begged is, why would you desire to rid yourself of this magnificent beard, Mr. Roylott? Once again, the answer is plain. We have clear evidence to shed light on the matter. Regard, if you will, this morning's newspaper, in particular the fascinating front page article, which it would appear you have read also, Mr. Roylott. I'm sure it needs no further clarification. The evidence that reveals your true identity is the article about the revolutionary. In translation, the headline reads, Revolutionary Villain Bolshevik Flees Russia via Shanghai. As you cannot fail to observe, the subject of the article possesses an extremely copious beard. Having noted the article yourself, you decided to remove your incriminating facial hair before it gave you away. In short, your true identity is beyond doubt. You are the fearsome Russian revolutionary himself, Villain Bolshevik. Not that I've heard of you myself, you understand. Now, as for my second conclusion, you are at this very moment on the brink of committing a most grievous crime. And the proof of this crime? Over there. Oh yes, Mr. Roylott. Taken unawares, people have a propensity to let their eyes stray, you see. Ah, and I assure you the eyes speak so much more eloquently and honestly than the mouth. The answer we seek lies where the furtive glance falls. The proof of your crime sits before your very eyes, yes, that traveling case. This time I think that the case be opened and its contents laid bare. No, I refuse. What could you possibly be concealing inside, we ask? By my estimation, a young lady, perhaps. One slight enough to fit therein. Don't be absurd. And what, pray, would be the identity of this young lady in the traveling case? Dear me, we are not well suited to a life of crime, are we? Your careless coup d'oil? Oil? Coup d'oil betrays you. We're going with that. Once again, we need only follow your furtive glance to find the answer. Yes, the reason you refuse to open your traveling case can be equally found in the pages of this newspaper. For there is another most stimulating article. If we turn from the fleeing revolutionary to the back page. Renowned, prima ballerina of the Novovich Ballet disappears from Shanghai. Such a headline can lead us to but one conclusion. Your crime is that of abduction. And according to the article, the young lady's name is Nikolina Pavlova. thus concludes Sherlock Holmes's great deduction of this Russian enigma, Elemensky. Susano-san, that wasn't one of the great deductions I've been hearing so much about, was it? Well, the stories are full of Mr. Sholmes' brilliant deductions, you know. But that did seem a little different somehow. Excuse me, Mr. Sholmes, could you come over here a moment? Pray, what can I do for you? It's about your deductions, would you mind? Not at all, go on. Well, to start with, there's the newspaper article. I think we had the same discussion before, but these two men look nothing like each other. Yes, I recall our discussion earlier. At that time, I believe I told you that the man is a revolutionary, well able to revolutionize his own appearance. In fairness to Mr. Sholmes, Mr. Roylott does look more like this man than you do. That's not the point, though. And another thing, the part about him abducting the ballerina, indeed is truly startling revelation. At first glance, the case would appear too small to accommodate a young woman. Not just at first glance, it is too small, clearly. You'd be lucky to fit a 5-year-old child into that case, even if you pushed really hard. I don't suppose the missing ballerina is a 5-year-old child, is she? You mean you don't know? No, the young lady is 15. No, I didn't know. How could I? Well, if she's 15, then 10 years worth of her would be poking out from the case. Some years ago I read something pertinent, I believe. A troop of men consuming vinegar daily in order to promote a certain lithinness in their bodies? Vinegar. For such a sour bunch, it would surely be simplicity itself to contort oneself into the confines of that small case. Oh dear, you might be thinking of contortionists in the circus, Mr. Sholmes. This whole thing is turning into a circus. Mr. Naruhodo, something's occurred to me about Mr. Sholmes' deductions just now. I think his powers of observation are, while magical, his eyes cut to the heart of a matter almost instantly. It's just where he directs his attention and his logic that seems a little off. Your idea of a little may be a little off itself, Miss Susano. It's just one or two key words in his deduction that seem to let him down. So I was wondering if we might perhaps tactically switch them for alternatives. What do you think? Switch some key words in his deductions. Yes, but very tactfully. I feel sure if we could do that, we'd unlock the true genius of Mr. Sholmes' great deduction. Precisely the thought that was going through my own head. This man is a lot of work. At times I wonder how anyone puts up with me. Ah ha 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 ha. It's not that fun. And you, my good fellow. Sorry? Take a moment to look at your wrists. My wrists? Ah, where are your handcuffs? Huh? How did... I felt they may hinder your ability to follow me in our dance of deduction. I don't believe it. Mr. Sholmes, you are a marvel. Don't worry, I shall restore the shackles to your wrist when we are finished. I'm not worried, in fact, I'd rather stay like this. So let us begin. Sherlock Holmes is proud to present his Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Hello there, Crusader. How are you doing tonight? So... tired? That's fair. It is pretty late your time. Okay, so the dubious-looking Russian, Mr. Roylott, obviously what catches the eye in the first place. Arrived an hour ago at the capital. You've been driving for 8 hours. Oh my god, that's a long road trip. I appreciate you stopping by, but it sounds like you should get some sleep. Enormous pairs of shears. Now we ask ourselves, what could you possibly want with such an implement? The answer, of course, is staring us in the face. You are on the verge of using the shears to cut away that copious beard of yours. This is where it's wrong. I'm not sure. Would you really use shears like that to cut off a beard? I doubt that's something I'll ever have to worry about. It doesn't quite sit right with me, though. Doesn't seem to be sitting right with Mr. Roylott, either. Your phone stopped notifying you when people you follow on Twitch are online, which is about half the reason why I've been missing your streams. Oh yeah, that's okay. I know notifications are weird sometimes. I should probably I started doing it at one point and then I kind of didn't keep up the habit as much as I should. Maybe I should look into setting up one of those Discord bots or something like that to automatically ping people in my Discord when I go live. I don't know if that would be a more accurate way to get people's attention, but maybe I should start doing that. It doesn't seem to be sitting right with Mr. Roylott either, which means I suppose that the deduction is wrong. Let's try to switch a key word here, Naruhodo-san, and see if it helps the matter. Alright, but how? I think we should start by taking a long, hard look at Mr. Roylott. I wonder if it's really his beard that he intends to use those shears on. Exactly. We do manage to find something that fits the sense of Mr. Sholmes' deduction better. Then what? I'm gonna leave the rest in your capable hands. Naruhodo-san. Am I the one to do something about this? Well, anyway, let's see if there's anything we could even use to switch around in that last sentence. What exactly was Mr. Roylott really going to use those enormous shears for? So I can use golden locks, copious beard, thick hat, coat buttons. I mean, I feel like the golden locks are the most suspicious. Giving away those golden locks you sport. We're on the verge of using the shears to cut away the golden locks you sport. Indeed, you have identified the precise detail I was intending to expose. Such lush golden hair certainly does not befit an old man. You're not a man at all, you're a woman! And judging from the length and sheen of your hair, one still very much in her youth. Oh no. Only I had managed to cut off my hair, no one would have suspected. The question then begged is, why would you desire to rid yourself of these magnificent locks? Once again, the answer is plain. We have clear evidence to shed light on the matter. I'm sure it needs no further clarification. The evidence that reveals your true identity is that article about the revolutionary. Actually, it's the article about the ballerina, I'm pretty sure. Well, that was a shock. I had no idea that old man was really a young woman in disguise, did you? What? Why are you staring at me like that? Yes, it was a surprise, Naruhodo-san. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Sorry? You look like you're in your element as you dance around the room deducing the facts with Mr. Sholmes. I'm just doing what we agreed. I'm not having fun or anything. This is strictly business. Not strictly... Probably was going to say competition. Yes, yes, I understand. Say no more. Well, anyway, let's focus on this next part of Mr. Sholmes' deduction, shall we? The evidence that he's picked out doesn't fit the facts at all now. No, that's true, given Mr. Roylott is actually a woman. Exactly he, or rather she, can't possibly be this merciless revolutionary. I suppose it's because the deduction as a whole has taken a different direction now. Yes. Let's switch the evidence for something else, something that fits the facts as we now understand them. For some reason, this woman needs to try to hide her true identity. I feel as though I've either read or heard about a young woman in a situation like that recently. Alright, I'll do my best. Let's present the article about the ballerina. The evidence that reveals your true identity is, of course, the article about the ballerina. That's right, you've hit the nail on the head. Renowned prima ballerina of the Novovich Ballet disappears from Shanghai. It would appear we are finally able to address you by your true name. Yes, because your true identity is that of the Novovich Ballet's prima ballerina, Miss Nikolina Pavlova. Arg! You're right. My real name is Nina. I mean, Nikolina Pavlova. But please, I beg you, don't tell anyone. So obviously, she can't be kidnapping the young ballerina. Now as for my second conclusion, you are at this very moment on the brink of committing a most grievous crime. And the proof of this crime? Over there. Oh yes, Miss Pavlova, taken unawares, people have a propensity to let their eyes stray, you see. And I assure you, the eyes speak much more eloquently and honestly than the mouth. The answer we seek lies where the furtive glance falls. The proof of your crime sits before our very eyes, yes, that traveling case. But does it, though? This woman is the ballerina, and she's right in front of our eyes, so clearly she can't be inside that traveling case as well. That's right, it seems she wasn't abducted at all, in which case, what is the crime this young woman is apparently committing? I can see I'm going to have to step in and fix the great detective's mistake again. You seem to look pleased, Naruhodo-san. Do you like the idea of another chance to dance around with Mr. Sholmes? Stop it. Anyway, there must be something else here that shows what this woman is up to. So... it's probably this very fancy-looking tiara just sitting there. Wow, look at this dazzling tiara. Never seen anything like it. Are those real diamonds, do you think? Oh, Naruhodo-san, try it on? What, me? Isn't it usually girls who wear tiaras? Wouldn't you like to try it on? Oh no, I couldn't possibly, it's far too beautiful. Why does this tiara look familiar? I feel like I've seen it somewhere recently. Yes! Let's present that tiara. Proof of your crime is surely this tiara. Ah! I believe this tiara is worn on stage by dancers in the Novovich Ballet, is it not? Indeed, it would appear to be identical to the tiara pictured here in the newspaper article. And if the reporting is to be believed, it's an item worth 20,000 rubles. In summary, the crime you have committed is theft. Oh no! Yes, you left your ballet troupe, unlawfully taking their precious tiara with you. I have no one, no family, no friends. I am all alone, and I need money. But I did not steal the tiara. It was a present from, how do you say, an Earl of Prussia. It belongs to me. This girl is only 15 years old and she's run away all by herself. She must have been extremely lonely. Alright, I will tell you everything. There is no point to hiding it now. Come, come, let us not be too hasty. What? There remains one unsolved mystery about you. Mystery? What do you mean? You have staunchly refused to open this traveling case of yours in our presence. It is reasonable to conclude, therefore, there exists some reason why you wish it to remain closed. Is that not so, Miss Pavlova? My dear girl, there is no sense in playing games with me. Nothing escapes my attention. Indeed, I have a very good idea of the contents of your case, even before I have laid eyes on them. Dear me, we are not well suited to a life of crime, are we? Your careless coup d'oil betrays you. Once again, we need only follow your furtive plans to find the answer. Yes, the reason why you refuse to open your case is written in the books on the shelf. That's not right. He's completely changed tack with his deduction now. I think Mr. Sholmes is adapting his logic to changing circumstances, don't you? Maybe, but why has he suddenly brought the bookshelf into all of this? It's just a wild guess, surely. Oh, do you think so? Well, it doesn't seem likely. The reason why this young woman doesn't want to open her case would have been written in a book that doesn't even belong to her. Yes, that's true, but still. Miss Pavlova certainly did cast her eyes in that direction. I noticed it myself. And there has to be another reason why she won't open her case. It must be somewhere in the same area if that's where her gaze was involuntarily drawn. I agree that's the only answer. Whatever she has hidden inside the case should be revealed by following her gaze in the direction of the bookcase. It's probably this empty frame, right? Like there's probably a picture that used to be in here. This is a charming little picture in here anyway. Right? What is it? Someone climbing up a steep mountainside? Or descending one, it seems to me. You've been on the flat sea for a while, maybe you start seeing hills and mountains and everything. What about the rules of passage? These are the rules of passage aboard Sespuria. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. There's exactly the same notice in our cabin too. What happens if you break the rules? Oh dear, I'm sure the punishment would be severe, Naruhodo-san. You'd probably be left to drift in the freezing cold ocean or shut inside a tiny wardroom for days on end. I've actually been serving time for weeks now, huh? I mean, this seems like a likely candidate. Yes, the reason why you refuse to open your case is written in the rules of passage. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. Inside that case of yours is something forbidden from carriage on this vessel. That is the real reason why you refuse to open it, thus revealing its contents. As we've seen, the trunk wobbles from time to time. No weapon or other dangerous item would move of its own accord. Which leaves but one possibility, Miss Pavlova. Inside your traveling case is the last item listed as forbidden in the vessel's rules of passage, a pet. Deduction complete. Elementary. That was cool. I like that. I hope we get to do more of those. I mean, I'm sure we get to do at least one in each case, but I hope we get to do like a bunch of those. Clearly you aren't who you said you were. No, I am not Grimsby Roylott. My real name is Nikolina Pavlova. Everything you said was correct. You absconded during one of your ballet company's performances in order to escape your homeland. Later that same night, you stole aboard this vessel. Which couldn't have been easy. The Burya is a huge steamship with a vast crew. Could you really have snuck on board without being noticed? In order to obscure your true identity, you somewhat recklessly took the guise of an old gentleman. And you intended to sever all links with your past by severing your long hair. Yet, to a woman, hair is no trifling matter. My personal recommendation is to leave well alone. So it was just you about to cut off your own hair. Who was it that let out the scream we heard from outside the cabin? The veritable tinkling of a bell? Why, none other than this young lady, naturally. More like a full set of pipes, if you ask me. I was so scared when I ran away in Shanghai, I was sure they would come looking for me. That's why I decided to, how do you say, disgust myself, so no one would recognize me. As a result, you transformed yourself into the questionable old man. I see. I put on the fur hat and fake beard. Then, just before you came in here, I saw in the newspaper, right on that page, there was a picture of me. I was so frightened I couldn't stop from screaming. I knew that if I didn't change my appearance completely, they would find me. So I decided to cut all my hair as fastly as possible. I picked up the scissors in my hand and... At the precise moment, we walked in through the annoyingly unlocked cabin door. Things happen like that sometimes, don't they? Things do indeed happen like that from time to time. Are those two even talking about the same thing? There's just one more thing I'd like to know. What exactly do you have inside your traveling case? You were right, it is my dear friend inside, my only friend in the whole world. Please, don't tell anyone if the captain finds out, if you say anything to the crew. Your secret is safe with us, I assure you, but in return, you must tell us in as much detail as you can muster about the events of last night. Yes, all right, I will tell you. Well, Mr. Naruhodo? Wasn't it something Mr. Sholmes' great deduction? Sure was something. Yes. I'm just not entirely sure what. But at least Miss Pavlova has agreed to tell us what she knows. That's incredible. Indeed, it is incredible. Ah, and one more thing. Oh, yes, what? Observe your wrists. My. Ah, your hands are cuffed again. What? But how? True to my word, I have restored your shackles. Grr. When and why? There is still a shadow of guilt cast over you, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm sorry to say, it can't be helped at the moment. Ha! Can't it? Really? Anyway, let's listen to what Miss Pavlova has to say. I can't go on not knowing. I have to find out what the speckled bandit Cosmo wrote about in his diary really was. So now that we're allowed to examine her room, can we do that? Don't touch. I'll tell you what I know about last night. Please, you must not touch my things. How do you say, forbid it? Oh, sorry. As you well should be, young man. What vulgar manners you have. Poking around in a young lady's private belongings. Neither shall I allow it. You're a hypocrite. Okay, so I imagine all of these are going to say, like, don't poke around in my stuff. So what happened last night? Did you know that someone was killed in the cabin next door to this one last night? One of the crewmen told me this morning when I was eating breakfast. The man who died, he was a friend of mine. Oh, that's why we're trying to find out what happened. Did you notice anything unusual last night? Perhaps you heard a strange noise, for example, people talking. Perhaps the ship was absorbed in a wild tempest. Perhaps its steam engine exploded. Perhaps everyone on board would have noticed if that happened. Miss Pavlova, is there anything you can tell us? I don't know. I'm sorry, but all I could think about last night was what I had done and whether they would find me. I didn't notice anything that was happening around me. Oh, I see. Running away. You've run away from your ballet company, haven't you? The Novovich Ballet? I'm traveling to Great Britain, and from there I want to go to America. I will never dance again. I want to forget everything about the ballet. I will start a new life. I wish to forget. Challenging proposition when you have that striking tiara as a reminder. But the tiara is mine. I need it to live. I have no money of my own. The Novovich Ballet gives us only a little food and water. We must dance all over the world. I had to run away. I had no choice. If I stayed, it would have killed me. So you ran away to protect yourself. Yes, and the crew of this ship, they have all been kind to me. They let me come on board and they said I could hide in this cabin. That is indeed the truth, Miss Pavlova. Creates a most intriguing conundrum. Yes, it does. What do you think about it, Mr. Naruhodo? Me? Oh, well, yes, of course. I think we should hear Miss Pavlova's explanation. So what conundrum, I'm not sure, but... Conundrum! Miss Pavlova, allow me to pose you a riddle. According to this newspaper, it was only yesterday that you absconded from the ballet. Now, that being the case, it must have been last night that you boarded this vessel. However, the USS Burya stopped by no port last night. Ah, that's it, of course. So how is it, pray, that you come to be aboard? Now that I think about it, the crewman outside the cabin acted very strangely when we mentioned that. It was just after we asked him about when the occupant of this cabin came aboard. That is not your business. Yes, you're right. He did seem to be hiding something. An angel descended from the heavens, bringing grace and beauty to the stage? Sorry, what was that? It is how the Russian newspapers described one of my performances. And that is how I came here too. I descended from the heavens because I am an angel. Considering English isn't your mother tongue, your description is very vivid. Mr. Sholmes once said, I never can resist a touch of the dramatic. It seems Miss Pavlova is the same. The genius descended from the heavens, bringing grace and beauty to detection. Words once said about myself. A quote from a wonderfully extravagant advertisement for the adventures of Herlock Sholmes, in fact. Yes, Mr. Showy. Anyway, it doesn't look like Miss Pavlova is going to tell us what really happened. friend. So the friend you mentioned is inside your traveling case, is that right? I don't think animals are allowed on board according to the rules of passage. Oh, please don't tell any of the crew. If they found my precious, the burly Russians would bestir themselves in unison to throw you and your case overboard, no doubt. Ah, so reassuring, Mr. Holmes. What sort of pet is your friend? A little puppy? It is, isn't it? Maybe an adorable little rabbit. Ah, you credit Russia as a land with small rabbits, do you? Oh, don't they have small rabbits there then? You may well ask. I have no idea. Ah. You two are miserable bunglers when it comes to understanding the nature of the young ballerina's friends. Isn't it obvious? It must be a chicken. Really? Consider the benefits. A rousing wake-up call, daily fresh eggs. And when adversity strikes, it could satisfy the needs of sustenance. That. So you'd eat your friends, I'll remember that. It's probably like a cat. Well, it would appear this friend's identity is a closely guarded secret not to be revealed. Ha 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 ha. She obviously doesn't quite trust us yet. There's something I should like to show her, I think. And she might be able to shed some light on it. But we probably want to present Cosmo's diary. This is the diary of my friend who passed away. His diary, yes, and he wrote in it last night before he died. Something a little unusual. It reads, 1:23 a.m. I can hear a faint whistling sound. And then a few minutes later, 1:33 a.m., what looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. Oh, it's probably a bird. A speckled band? I don't understand. That rhymed. It's strange, isn't it? But the ventilator he mentioned just joins to this cabin, you see? It's up there on the wall. In other words, this cabin and the victim's cabin are connected together. Miss Pavlova, has something occurred to you? Does the speckled band the victim mentioned mean something to you, or the whistling sound, perhaps? No. I don't know anything. Oh. It was worth a try. Knock knock. Excuse me, Mr. Roylott. Yes, what? Wow, she's fast. Captain would like to speak with you. You must come to the captain's quarters at once, please. Alright, I will come now. What? You must leave, now. Oh no, it's fine. Don't mind us. Yes, please don't worry yourself, Mr. Roylott. Get out. Passenger said out, or do you want me to throw you out? It looks like we'll have to leave investigating this cabin until later. What a pity. Yes, indeed. And so we lost our chance. Having still not managed to investigate Miss Pavlova's cabin, we were unceremoniously chased out. It is to say, we were quite literally picked up and thrown into the passageway outside. To be continued. Yeah, we'll save our current progress. Wish we hadn't been thrown out like that. Wish we'd managed to find some clue as to what that speckled band might be. Oh, maybe it is a mouse, because that would be why the mouse traps are there. We didn't manage to investigate at all, and I imagine that we won't be able to for a while longer. We'll never get past that sailor guarding the door. He's clearly glaring at us as if to say, don't even think about it. Oh, wait a minute. What is it? Well, what happened to our great detective friend? Where did he go? Oh yes, he's completely disappeared. When did he do that? He slipped away as quietly as the wind, but not before ensuring these were securely back on my wrists. Can we try talking to this guy? I really wish we'd had a chance to look around Miss Pavlova's cabin. What? Why you look like that? You want something? Maybe you want me to throw you out again? Hmm? Oh, no, definitely not that. Next time I have to throw you out, I show you where lobsters spend winter. Understand? Understand. Maybe I should steer clear of him until he's forgotten my face. I don't think he'll ever forget your face, Naruhodo-san. See, so we've already done that. Already done that. That. We haven't looked at this door. Door leads to the second class area. It's locked. Can't open it. Oh well, that stands to reason. No one wants to let the murderer escape. Gosh, she gave me a very stern look when she said that. What do we investigate the door to? First class cabin number 1, that's our cabin, not our cabin, it's Kazuma-sama's. So far this is all the same. Anything new? Anyway, I wonder if Inspector Hosanaga has managed to uncover any new clues. Yes, we should probably find him and ask. Okay, so there's our hint what to do. Kazuma's cabin. Looks like they're still investigating in here. Yes, on that subject. I wonder if Inspector Hosanaga is unscathed. What do you mean, unscathed? Surely you haven't forgotten, have you, Naruhodo-san? Don't you remember what he said about allowing you out of this cabin to investigate? He was going to talk to the captain about it. He said he'd lay his life on the line for you. Ah, yes, but I'm sure he was exaggerating. Let's see what he has to say for himself. He might have some new information for us, you never know. Is he not here? Can we ask this guy where he went? You, where did you go? Oh, sorry, I just went to the next door cabin to investigate. What? Who gave you permission for this? Seaman Hosanaga did. That new Japanese, was it? Later, I will roll him into ball and throw him into cold room. Whew, he's gone back to guarding the door. I hope Inspector Hosanaga doesn't find him in himself in too much trouble on our account. He's really gone out of his way to help us, hasn't he? When we got back to Japan, we'll have to take him for a steak at La Carnival. That could be a very long time from now, Naruhodo-san. All the books provided for passengers occupying this cabin, neatly arranged on the shelf. They were all over the place when we first looked around, if you remember. Ah, yes, and you tidied them up, didn't you? You have to look after the ship's property. Unruly behavior in the cabins leads to damage. But it really wasn't me who knocked them over. Well, anyway, I feel much better now that they're neatly lined up. I can't relax when things are untidy. It's clear that these letters were written with the ink that was somehow spilt on the floor, and they spelled a Russian word for wardrobe. It does seem to be an unambiguous pointer to you, Naruhodo-san, as you were sleeping in there. But to be truly unambiguous, it should have just spelt out my name, don't you think? Well, either way, one fact remains. It's hard to imagine that Kazuma-sama would have written his last words or word in Russian, which begs the question of who did write it. Either Kazuma-sama, or I am doing the San-sama everything thing on my own now, I guess. This is where Kazuma spent his final moments writing his diary. 1:23 a.m. I can hear a faint whistling sound. 1:35 a.m. What looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill. Looking at his writing here on this page, it's almost impossible to believe that he's gone. Kazuma-sama left a valuable clue in these words, I'm sure of it. We have to solve this mystery, Naruhodo-san. We will. Okay, that's all the same, that's the same. Oh, the rules are different. Rules of passage for travel aboard the SS Burya. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. So by bringing her pet on board, Miss Pavlova has broken the rules. She called it her friend, didn't she? Yes, although we don't know what form this friend takes as yet. I'm almost certain that whatever it is, it's inside the traveling case in her cabin. A friend. There's more to this than it seems, I think. Okay, so we've investigated everything here, right? Oh, there's Hosanaga. Let's also investigate the vent, just to be thorough. So the ventilator joins to Miss Pavlova's cabin. Yes, that's right. And just a few minutes before he died, Kazuma saw something emerging from it. The speckled band, as he described it. If only Miss Pavlova had been able to shed some light on it, but she seemed as baffled as we are. Yes, I wonder if she's telling us everything, though. I'm not sure. I know most people abroad would say the same about me, but there was something about that woman that didn't sit right with me. Oh, Hosanaga, you have seen better days. Ah, you're back. Inspector, what happened to you? Your face is... Please don't worry about it. They're just scratches. Made by a bear, maybe? When I told the captain that I'd given you permission to investigate, he told me he'd pummel me with his fists and then toss me overboard. What? But the pummeling was over in a flash and he must have decided against throwing me overboard. So it was nothing really. Looks like he wasn't joking when he said he'd lay his life on the line if he had to. Well, thanks to your efforts, we now know a little about the neighboring cabin. Yes, so I understand. Oh. I bumped into a man claiming to be a great detective a little while ago. I think he said his name was something like Herr Lock-Sholmes. I don't think he was German, though. Ah, that explains it. Shall we compare notes then? We can tell you what we found out. Yes, let's do it. The cabin next door. What? Nikolina Pavlova? She's in the cabin next door? Oh, do you know who she is? Please, what self-respecting ballet fan wouldn't know that graceful angel? Oops, I think I upset him there. Well, that tells us the neighboring cabin is unrelated to the case at least. Oh, how? Because angels don't go around committing crimes, do they? Oops, now I've definitely upset him. Inspector, has your investigation in here proved fruitful? If I'm honest, there's very little more I can do. Our duty is to make sure the scene isn't disturbed to hand over to the Hong Kong police. So I'm just keeping watch here, trying not to take my eye off the job. Oh, I see. Ah, there is one thing. We do have a small piece of new information for you. Oh, what? Yes, do tell us, Inspector, please. New information. What is the new information you have, Inspector? It's this. The Buria's medical officer has finished his examination of the body. I managed to obtain the report. Oh, Kazuma's postmortem report. Kazuma-sama. So what was the cause of death? Damage to the cervical vertebrae is what's written in the report. His neck was broken? Yes, it would seem so. There was no obvious wounds or other signs of injury, so at first I think they were considering poison. But it turns out they found no trace of poison in the system at all. Well, what weapon was used then? Nothing has been found as yet, but the fact that there are no signs of a wound suggests it may have been a blunt object, something that wouldn't leave a mark. Oh, I see. All the body's nerves run through the spine to the brain. A strong enough impact to the neck could induce death. It is a possibility, and no obvious wound would be left. Poor Kazuma. I have a second copy of the report. If it might be useful, you're welcome to have it. Really? Are you sure? Yes, it's fine. I trust you. After all, if I didn't trust you, I'd never have agreed to you leaving this cabin in the first place, would I? Ah. Postmortem report has been entered into the court record. And let's talk about this great detective. Oh, Mr. Sholmes was here, was he? Yes, he seemed to be enjoying himself a little too much as he crept about on the floor investigating. But then he suddenly left. I suppose he must have become bored. Did he say anything at all? Actually, now that you mention it, yes, just one thing, but he practically shouted it. It's shoe polish, was all he said. Shoe polish? I wonder what he meant. It was when he was over there by the piece of broken glass, do you see? Ah, perhaps he was talking about this brick-colored mark, do you think? Ah, yes, that must be it. But how could Mr. Sholmes know that it's shoe polish? That leaves me cold, I'm afraid. I have no idea. What is it, Susano-san? Well, Kazuma-sama was wearing leather shoes with a very dark tan hue. Dark tan, a sort of dark brownish red then. Yes, a little like the color of red wine, but darker. I often repaired them for him. Oh, does this mean that this mark was made by the polish on Kazuma's shoes as they scuffed the floor? That's really all I can tell you at this stage. I should return to my post. My fellow crewman's eyes are boring into the back of my head. Yeah, that might be for the best, thank you. Poor Inspector, you look exhausted. Oh, no, well... I feel terrible that I failed to protect Asogi-san. He was my responsibility. Of course, my pain is nothing compared to yours. You were his friends. The truth is, I seem to have a heavy head ever since I woke this morning. A heavy head? That's interesting. My head's still throbbing too. Maybe the boat hit like some nasty turbulence or something? Because think about it, everything in both cabins has been knocked over. Our head was hurting. The inspector's head is hurting. What if, Kazuma just, like, fell and broke his neck? But then why would the wardrobe in Russian be there? there anything else we can examine in here? Otherwise I think we just have to move out of the room again. It really is such a beautiful color, this glass. It looks like whatever it was has broken clean in two. The other half is nowhere to be seen. And then there's the brick-colored mark, which is shoe polish, according to that great detective you seem to know all about. Suppose it must be from Kazuma-sama's shoes. Maybe, but what I'd like to know is, how can the detective be so sure it's shoe polish and not something else? Because he's a great detective, of course. It's hardly a reason, is it? We probably just have to go back out into the hallway, and maybe our buddy Herlock will be out here. Whatever it is, we're getting the text. That's usually a good sign. Look, Naruhodo-san. Seaman Stroganov has gone. Strong enough? The burly Russian sailor who's always crossing his arms at us. All these Russian names are impossible to remember. Tra-la-la. Did you hear that? It sounded like someone singing. Tra-la-la, lira-lira-lay. I did it the great detective way. This caroling, I know that lark-like voice. Well, never mind that now, this is a golden opportunity for us. Yes, you're right, we must seize it. Let's go inside Miss Pavlova's cabin while we can and investigate. Definitely before that stringy knot crewman comes back. It's Stroganov, not stringy knot. Like beef stroganoff from anime. Miss Pavlova isn't back yet. Susano-san. Oh, where's she gone? Hey, what are you doing? Those are her private things. There's not a moment to waste, Naruhodo-san. We must investigate as quickly as we can. I suppose you're right for Kazuma's sake. Not just for Kazuma-sama. What do you mean? Can't be long now until we arrive at port in Hong Kong. I don't want you to be in those handcuffs when we get there. Really? We must solve this case, Naruhodo-san, by ourselves if we have to. Yes, we will. So let's examine. First of all, this case is open. Oh my, Miss Pavlova's case is open. It's completely empty inside, but according to the great detective's great deduction, she was hiding her special friend in there. Yes, a friend that she had to keep secret, because you're not allowed to bring animals aboard the SS Burya. I don't know what kind of animal she had. And more to the point, where is it now? There are just a few books on the desk, nothing else by the looks of it. Oh, Miss Pavlova only ran away from ballet last night. She's hardly occupied this cabin for any time at all. That's true. I wonder what kind of books she likes to read. Let me see. Yes, I see. It would seem that Miss Pavlova enjoys reading books written in Russian. Thanks, I think I probably already knew that. It's rude to ask too much of people, Naruhodo-san. Kindly remember that. Let's also check the bookshelf, maybe? All the books are toppled over together. Look, every single one. Do you think that's a god of the sea, perhaps? He's toppled too, though. Exactly the same as the bookcase next door in Kazuma's cabin. Perhaps. Perhaps Miss Pavlova was practicing a difficult ballet pose and knocked over all the books. I don't know. Would she really be practicing ballet on the same night she ran away from her ballet company? Alright then. It must have been you. You lost your temper and knocked them all over in a fit of rage? Not everything bad that happens on the ship is because of me, you know. Well, anyway, I'll set them all straight again in here, too. I don't like seeing things in disarray. You are tampering with a crime scene. I mean, I guess this room isn't a crime scene yet, but still. I wonder what this little saucer is doing on the floor. I guess it doesn't look like it's been dropped, more like it was put there deliberately. Do you think there could be a leak in the roof just above here? What, a leak? Is this ship quite safe? I'm sure that even if there's a little leak in the roof, it doesn't mean the whole ship is going to sink. No, you're right. Of course you're right. She's really trying to persuade herself, isn't she? Yes, they're displayed in this cabin too. The rules of passage. I think this is going to be all the same information we already have. I just hope Simon Stroganoff doesn't find it and throw it overboard. Oh yeah, so do I. Alright, Hodo-san, are you there? Alright, I'm right here, yes, why? Oh good. I thought you might have climbed into the wardrobe when I wasn't looking. There's no place like home. Believe me, I don't have some strange compulsion to jump inside every wardrobe I see, you know. Well, anyway, I'm not sure anyone could fit inside this one. It's full of beautiful outfits. I suppose they're all stage costumes. I was rather hoping we might find Miss Pavlova's friend hiding in there, but no such luck. I feel like that big suitcase there should be something, but... So this ventilator connects to Cosmo's cabin next door. Yes, although what a fool a shipbuilder must be to open a ventilator into another room. Maybe it's so that if there's a gas leak next door, the occupant of this cabin would notice and raise the alarm. Or the occupants of both cabins would die of gas poisoning. That is a possibility. Was natural gas even like a thing at this point in history? I guess it would be. Anyway, last night, Kazuma wrote that he saw a speckled band coming out of this ventilator. Or he was peeping. This cabin door has the same simple sort of bolted latch that our cabin door has. If the bolt's drawn across, there's no way anybody could enter the cabin from the outside. Yes, it's not a particularly heavy-duty bolt, is it? But still, it wouldn't slide across of its own accord, would it? No, and the door is made of metal, so there's no chance of trickery using magnets to unbolt it from the outside. And it seals up perfectly, too, to stop any seawater coming in. So you couldn't use the method you told me of passing a thread through a crack around the closed door either. I seem to know a lot of tricks for opening doors. I'm starting to see why they suspect me. I suppose every cabin has a waste paper basket. Shall we have a little look and see what's been thrown away? Naruhodo-san. It's poor etiquette to go sifting through someone else's rubbish, you know? Those eyes, she's looking at me like I'm a piece of rubbish now. However, these are special circumstances, I think. Exactly, we have no choice. There's hardly anything in here at all. Oh, well, that's a little disappointing. It would seem this teapot is empty. So the natural conclusion is that the Russians are a very thirsty people. Or because Miss Pavlova only came into this cabin last night, she hasn't had the chance to make any tea yet. I mean, it could be either. It's definitely that they're excessively thirsty. I'd lay 1,000 to 1 on it. You're rather obstinate, aren't you, Naruhodo-san? Anything else I can investigate? Kinda seems like there's nothing in this cabin. Nothing on the desk. I think we've kind of investigated everything there is to investigate. So I guess let's move. Like, what if we go into Kazuma's cabin again? No, there's nothing new. So surely there must be something I didn't fully investigate, right? Oh, we could investigate this one. There's one of these next to the bed in Kazuma's cabin too. Yes, it's a bell cord. I can't resist. She barely hesitated there, and she gave it a good tug too. No, I didn't actually expect anyone to come. We don't want them to, we're trying to investigate in secret. So now I think we've seen everything, right? Door, rules, books, case, platter, desk, trash. This picture frame is not a thing. Like, if we go out and investigate something in the hall or something, do we have more context? Oh, Sholmes is here. Oh, it's Mr. Sholmes, look. Oh, you never know where he's gonna turn up next, do you? Okay. He seems to be stealing a look at something as he sings to himself. Tra-la-la-li-ra-li-ra-lay, I did it the great detective way. He's still singing. Do you think he hasn't noticed us? Or he's simply in extremely high spirits? Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when the yard bit off more than it could chew. And through it all, when there was doubt, it's lucky her luck was about. Excuse me? I solved it all and I stood tall. I did it the great detective way. That doesn't rhyme. Mr. Sholmes. Ah, what is it? You want to fight, huh? Honestly, interrupting a fellow when he's singing. I was just about to reach the climactic finish. Sorry, I thought you were never going to stop, so I figured now is as good a time as any. I very nearly dropped you to the floor with one of my famous right hooks. Alright, I get the picture now. Could you put those fists away? Mr. Sholmes, you seem to be examining something before we interrupted you. Ah, yes, that. I was immersed in study of the ship's log as penned by the stockily built crewman who's usually on guard here. Oh yes, the ship's log. And did you find out anything useful from it? Well, after 2 a.m. this morning, the majority of the entries are blank. Which means that there was nothing to report, nothing about what happened, so... You truly are a student from the land of the rising sun. You've been utterly blinded by it. Ahaha. Sorry? Your logic, my boy, is inverted. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? Observe the other pages and all shall become clear. It would seem the same crewman off stands sentry in this first-class passageway, and he has an almost religious practice of recording nothing to report every half hour. Oh, he writes that in every 30 minutes? Nothing to report. Precisely. Put simply, the seaman writes nothing to report when there is just that. And yet, the ship's log from last night is largely blank. He didn't even write nothing to report. Do you mean? Yes, there were circumstances afoot last night which led to the seaman being absent from his post. What kind of circumstances? What happened? That remains a mystery for now, but we can be sure something significant took place. So significant that it caused the seaman to forget his regular habit of scribbling nothing to report in the log. These are important details. I would stake my life on it. You must log the ship's log in your mental file. Added to the court record. Now that deduction was worthy of a great detective. You're starting to understand what my way is. I see. What makes Sholmes? Sholmes. Brilliance. Aha ha 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 ha. Ooh, ouch. What is it? Are you hurt? Ah, don't worry yourself. I seem to be afflicted with a throbbing head this morning for some reason. Nothing more. Well, my friends, until our next encounter. He's still singing to himself. I can hear it as he wanders off down the passageway. Is something wrong, Susano-san? You seem lost in thought. It's just, well, I feel the same. Sorry? Ever since I woke this morning, I've had something of a headache. A sort of continuous throbbing. Oh, you too? Would examining this do anything? Oh, we didn't get to ask him about the shoe polish thing. Nothing to report, nothing to report, nothing to report. And then after 2 a.m., nothing in the thingy. So now if we go into Pavlova's, does that do something? Ding-ling ding 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 a-ling ding 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 ding. Whirr whirr. Shut down the engines immediately. Vessel sighted at 1/4 mile 4. Full stop, hard to starboard. All hands brace for impact. What the? I think we're about to crash into another ship. What? I can't stand. Susano-san, hold on to me. Wag! Susano-san, are you alright? Are you injured at all? I think I'm fine. Thank you, Naruhodo-san. Looks like we avoided a collision. I think. Yes, the ship has come to a stop. Oh my goodness, what about you, Naruhodo-san? Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Hello, is anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance. Well, that sounds like Inspector Hosanaga. Is that you in here? There, Naruhodo-san? Unbolt the door, quickly. What? The bolt? Look at that, the door is bolted. Did you do that, Susano-san? No, I didn't touch it. Well, that's strange. How did... And look, all the books. They're just like they were before again. Naruhodo-san, aren't you going to open the door and let the inspector in? I'd better tidy this place up first. Y'all keep tampering with a crime scene. Our violent emergency stop had solved one mystery, at least in a very vivid way. but I knew that what awaited us on the other side of the cabin door would not be pleasant. I hurried around tidying up the cabin with a new sense of foreboding in my heart. To be continued. Yeah, we'll save our current progress. Investigation Part 3. "19th of January, SS Burya, Miss Pavlova's cabin. Somehow the door to the cabin we were in ended up bolted after we made an emergency stop. Susano-san took a deep breath and then gently slid back the bolt. What are you doing in Miss Pavlova's quarters? You both look unhurt. Good. Yes, we're fine, thank you. What on earth happened? We heard something about how we were going to collide with another ship. Yes, it appears to have been a false report, though. Oh, how did that happen? There's a dense fog outside, so it's extremely difficult to see. Someone must have thought he saw a ship ahead. This person obviously triggered the alarm, and that's why we made an emergency stop. Everything is chaos. Passengers are screaming. Crew are running everywhere. The first class area is the only quiet part of the ship at the moment. Oh, I see. Someone triggered the alarm? Does that mean that someone pressed that button outside? Ah, you wicked intruder, dressed all in black, you are the devil. Sorry, me? I've been called a lot of things before, but devil is a first. You opened my traveling case, how could you? What? No, we didn't touch it. That's right, Miss Pavlova. It was already open when we came into your cabin. Inspector! Yes? Arrest this man, I know he did it. He is a criminal. Is it not enough that he has killed a man? Duh, and he is stowaway as well. The vixen promises not to steal chicken, do you believe? Take him away, he is a trespasser as well as everything else. Stowing away, trespassing, killing, she is right, you are the devil. It doesn't look good, does it? There is a cell below deck, throw him in. Tomorrow we dock in Hong Kong, then we give you straight to the police. Wait, a cell? Please, Inspector Hosanaga, is there nothing you can do? This is a Russian vessel. I really have no jurisdiction here. After my last effort to appeal to the captain's good nature, I think I'm out of options. This is terrible. This is a real crisis. I've got to find a solution. Immediately. So... Miss Pavlova, can I get out? Listen, sorry that we snuck in here without your permission, but get out now. We just need to do investigating here to help understand what happened to... it's no use, she's not going to listen. I need to find someone who will. Probably won't be this guy, but let's try it anyway. Please just give me a little more time. I do nothing for you except show you way to ship's prison cell. Thanks, but no thanks, but I'm innocent. I didn't kill anyone. And trespassing and stowing away? Well, you know. Sometimes life can lead you down some unusual avenues, and well, enough, you are guilty. Ship's cell is only place fit for you. Come on, there has to be someone, some savior to rescue me from this crisis. I mean, Hosanaga just told us he was out of options, right? Oh, Herlock is here. What are you doing up there? Mr. Sholmes! Naturally, I was analyzing what a weight of 20,000 rubles feels like on one's head. Have I not told you that as a detective it is my business to know what other people do not? This isn't merely tomfoolery, my boy, oh no! Well, why were you hanging from that hook before then? Isn't it obvious? To properly assess the weight of the 20,000 rubles, naturally. I wish to determine if it would bend that conceited-looking hook on the wall, so full of brag and bounce. I never know whether to take this man seriously. You again, the great detective. Inspector. I confess I've been looking for you. I have something to report to you most urgently. Well, you might try looking for me somewhere other than a hook on a wall next time. What is to report? Speak. An urgent report from a great detective can mean but one thing. Yes. The case of the curious murder that took place last night here on this vessel, the steamship Buria, has been solved. By me, naturally. What? Really? Yes, I have eliminated all other possibilities. No other explanations exist. So, allow me to illuminate all your minds. For I am about to reveal my greatly admired great deduction to the case. Say that 5 times fast. Ha, you have solved it? Even Hedgehog understands this case. We all know who was responsible for killing student boy this morning when we found criminal in wardrobe. It is this stowaway and he has the handcuffs to prove it. I didn't do it. The trouble is, there doesn't appear to be anyone else who could have killed the victim. As everyone knows, the cabin door was bolted shut from the inside. That means the culprit must be someone who was inside the cabin. Yes, it's what's called a locked room mystery in detective stories. Locked room, that is point. The room was locked? Well, I can't deny that. There's no way the bolt could have been drawn across from the outside the cabin. You are all quite mistaken. The cabin next door is not a so-called locked room at all. What? Is he about to point out the thing that we already kind of figured out? Oh yes, there is another entrance. An entrance used last night by the culprit in order to gain access to the cabin despite the bolted door. What other entrance? We never discovered one. Wyatt gapes open-mouthed at you even as we speak. The ventilator, man. The ventilator? Gra-ha-ha-ha-ha. You think this is funny? I cannot even put my arm through that hole. That's because your arms are as thick as tree trunks. You suggest the culprit entered and left the victim's cabin through that tiny opening? It's not possible. But it is. And last night, the victim even witnessed the intruder in the act of passing through the ventilator. Mr. Sholmes, do you mean... Are you referring to the words Kazuma-sama wrote in his diary? "1:23 a.m. I can hear a faint whistling sound. 1:35. What looks like some sort of speckled band is dangling from the ventilator grill." Precisely, my dear madam. But what does it mean? What is this speckled band? The answer to that particular conundrum is in this very cabin. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? There's a distinct element of danger, but fear not, I am ready. What I am about to expose for you all to see will shock you to your cores. Behold! Kya! What the? Oh! It's a snake! Allow me to introduce you all to the band, the Speckled Band. A snake? Indubitably. Mr. Sholmes, just one thing. Pray, what troubles you? Well, that snake isn't really speckled, is it? It looks more stripy, wouldn't you say? Hmm? Yes, you're right. I think in this case you'd have to call it the striped band, wouldn't you? Hehehe. You both see and observe with distinction. However, do you not think that this is precisely the trap in which the culprit wishes you to fall? Oh my goodness, really? It's a trap? How exactly? I think perhaps it is time that I explain the intricacies of my train of thought. We know how these go. Are you ready, Miss Pavlova? Sorry for the young man who died, but that is all. His death has nothing to do with me. The whole thing has nothing to do with me. There are two conclusions I have drawn from the facts. Number one, last night your friend infiltrated the victim's cabin. And number two, that same friend was responsible for the victim losing his life. No. She's turned as white as a bowl of rice again. Sholmes must be right. He's hit the nail on the head. This young woman's friend killed Mr. Asogi? It looks like he can't speak with that snake coiled around his head. I would advise as little movement as possible, Seaman. You wouldn't want the fangs of that long friend in your neck. So everyone, let us begin. Sherlock Sholmes is proud to present his Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Oh boy, do we get to do deductions again? Yes, we do! Here's the thing though, he had a broken neck, but it could be a, like, constrictor type of snake. But then again, wouldn't that make the... wouldn't it make Mr. Stroganoff, dead? Miss Pavlova, moments ago you claimed the following. His death has nothing to do with me. The whole thing has nothing to do with me. You cannot deceive yourself. Yes, when you recall those horrid events, your aching heart smarts with pain. Probably not heart. Probably wrist, based on the fact that she examined her wrist. And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link with the victim's death. So we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stole into the victim's cabin on that portentous night? Why, naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? As I suspected, another telltale glance. Without doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us. And yet, that fact leaves us in a quandary. The victim's written observations on the night in question tell of a speckled band, whereas regrettably, this specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way. What explanation can we then give, pray? What was the sign that fell upon the victim's eyes last night? Her sight. No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with any of this. Oh, but it does. You have the answer to this quandary even now, hidden behind your back. Yes, that which you are trying to, but failing to conceal, can only be the snake's slowed skin? Evidently, after the subtle and horrible crime, this most deadly friend of yours shed its original skin. No? I don't know what you're talking about. Last night, through the ventilator visible in this cabin, your then speckled friend slithered next door. Using the bell cord on the other side as a bridge, the serpent silently descended into the victim's quarters. In the dim light, it appeared to the young gentleman was about to lose his life as a speckled band. In summary, the nature of this friend of yours, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a rare breed of snake whose markings change every time it slows its skin. A snake so dreadful we can only imagine it would be found in the deepest depths of India. That's all topic 1. Ooh. There's a lot to cover there. Deduction 2. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter. The grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life? And why? According to the data of which I have been appraised, it would appear that there were no visible signs of injury. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom. Well, that doesn't work, because there was no sign of poison. Now, we take that as fact, which we shouldn't, but, you know. We can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be? Yes, an examination of the deceased's body will prove the cause of death conclusively. The almost, but not quite, imperceptible puncture wounds left by the venomous fangs will seal the truth. It's the vestiges of the snake bite delivered by your terrifying friend. This makes no sense. There's no point feigning ignorance, Miss Pavlova. After the incident, you endeavored to hide everything, didn't you? But now your involuntary glances betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case. When we first met in this cabin, it came to my attention that your case moved periodically. Your serpent, assassin, was restless inside, no doubt. You don't. It is telling that the victim made note of a low whistling sound that he heard minutes before his end. That was your signal, was it not? The sound you had used to train your serpent friend. To train? Indeed. You'd put the serpent through this ventilator and wait. After a period, you'd summon it back with a whistle. You wouldn't know if the animal had done its duty, so you would listen for signs of life next door. If the victim appeared not to have been dispatched, you'd release the snake once more. Do you deny the snake has undergone such training? It's not true. Having slithered through the ventilator and down the bell cord, this creature need only to sink its fangs in once, and its venom would course through the victim's veins, ending his existence forever. That is the true nature of the speckled band that took this young man's life. There can be no doubt my logic is infallible. Oh boy, it is not. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of the speckled band. Miss Pavlova has trained her pet snake as a killing machine. I mean, she is named, like, Pavlov. There, on the floor, you will observe a saucer of milk. The promise of food is the key to training any creature. Incredible. You've solved the mystery. Amazing, your great deduction really lives up to its name. I see now why Herlock Sholmes has become such a household name. My dear man, it was nothing remarkable. As the Russians say, I could have done it with one left hand. Could I venture an opinion, Mr. Sholmes? But of course, what's on your mind? It's just... about your deductions before, something doesn't quite make sense to me. I welcome questions as to my method, and I will answer both loudly and proudly. Oh, well, good. First of all, snakes are egg-laying creatures, part of the reptile family. You are well informed, madame. And reptiles, don't drink milk. Ah. It's really only mammals that like to drink milk, you see. So, I'm not sure it would be possible to train a snake using milk as a reward. Oh, I just got pictures of the dog. That's so sweet. I'll post these pictures in the Discord later, when we're done streaming for tonight. No matter, no doubt Miss Pavlova used some other treat to encourage her pet to do her bidding. Milk was merely an example. The logic holds. Oh, there is something else. Snakes have no ears. Ah. Yeah, so I'm not sure it would really be possible to signal to a snake by whistling. But, madame, what of the tales from Arabia? Have you not heard of the snakes that dance to the sounds of a flute? I think perhaps the performers play their music in time with the snake's natural movements. Oh, I see. No hands, no feet, no ears? These creatures are so inept as to be practically useless. That's not nice. What did snakes ever do to you? Don't take it out on the snakes, Mr. Sholmes. There is one other thing. You have more? Snakes use the scales on their bellies to propel themselves. So, I'm not really sure that a snake could manage to climb up a flat bell cord like the one in these cabins. That it should try harder. Please don't be angry with me, Mr. Sholmes. The point is, even if the snake had gone through the ventilator to the next door cabin, it couldn't have come back without help. What I'm trying to say is that there are a number of reasons why it's difficult to imagine the snake could have a part in this. Are we not going to still get to contest the, like, deduction stuff, though? I think we need to step in and help again, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh no, you don't mean... Yes, we need to modify Mr. Sholmes' latest deduction and turn them into the great ones they ought to be. I had a feeling that was coming. Alright, let's give it a try. Just what I was waiting for, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, right. So, cast your eyes down to your wrists again. You've done it again! Your handcuffs are gone! Where did they go? Fear not. I shall see them restored after our work is done. I really wish you'd leave them off. I wonder if they did that because they wanted to, like, reuse animations across different chapters. And so they were like, okay, we can't have him doing all the pointing and stuff with the handcuffs on, so we're just going to take him off for these segments. Now everyone let us begin. Porlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. Miss Pavlova, moments ago, blah blah blah. Yes, when you recall those horrid events, your aching heart smarts with pain. I'm gonna go with a wrist. She does have a pained expression on her face. Yes, that's true. She looks as though Kazuma-sama's death is weighing heavily on her mind. But you're not sure Mr. Sholmes has read her quite correctly, is that it? Could there be some other way to interpret her expression, then? Let's take a moment and really look very closely at Miss Pavlova. I mean, she's holding her wrist, right? claw scratch. Oh, Naruhodo-san, look, that looks like a very painful wound. It looks like a scratch made by some kind of small animal, and fairly recently too. Well, whatever scratched her doesn't appear to be around here. We should still present it, though. Yes, when you recall those horde events, that claw scratch smarts with pain. Indeed, and simple observation reveals that this wound is fresh. Miss Pavlova, did you, in fact, receive that scratch sometime last night? Ah! When I think about the young man who died next door, I feel so sad. And when I am sad, the pain from this wound is worse. And it is that very pain that evidences your inextricable link to the victim's death. So, we ask, what was the nature of this intruder that stole into the victim's cabin on that portentous night? Excuse me. And naturally, it was the friend with which you boarded this vessel, was it not? As I suspected, another telltale glance. Without doubt, your friend is the writhing serpent we see before us. I think that's not correct. Seems likely that the scratch mark on the back of Miss Pavlova's hand was made by this friend of hers, doesn't it? Except, snakes don't have claws, do they? No, they don't. They don't even have hands or feet on which claws might grow. Well then, if that snake isn't her pet, what is it? What's the true identity of this friend of hers? I'm guessing mouse. We should follow her gaze, Naruhodo-san. That's where we'll find the answer. Oh, wait, there's a cat in this picture. Oh, look at the photograph in this frame. There must be something This must be something Miss Pavlova brought with her when she ran away. She is exceptionally beautiful, isn't she? Yes, that's true, but personally, it's the little black creature she's holding that's caught my eye. Better take a closer look at this. Present the little kitten. Without doubt, your friend is the little kitten we see before us. But where did the snake come from, then? Yes, the scratch on the back of your hand makes that abundantly clear. Oh no. The whereabouts of this black kitten isn't clear, but what is clear is that you brought the animal with you when you ran away, didn't you? Ah. Darka is my best friend. I couldn't leave her behind. Darka would appear to be a Russian blue. And yet, that fact leaves us in a quandary. The victim's written observations on the night in question tell of a speckled band, whereas regrettably, this specimen's markings do not fit that description in any way. What explanation can we give then, pray? What was the sight that fell upon the victim's eyes last night? No, don't look at me. This has nothing to do with any of this. Oh, but it does. You have the answer to this quandary even now, hidden behind your back. Yes, that which you are trying but failing to conceal can only be the snake's slothed skin. Did you see that? She just took something out of her pocket and hid it behind her back. If she just left it in her pocket, no one would have ever known. Oh yes, ploys like that are Mr. Sholmes' specialty. He's ever so cleverly forced her to reveal something. Thought deduction was his specialty, or maybe making me believe that was a ploy too. Anyway, I find it hard to believe that's the skin of a snake, in which case, what is Miss Pavlova hiding behind her back? Hold on. Why can't I... Oh, maybe if I examine it? Well, it's speckled, and it is a band, but what is it? It seems to be soft and fluffy, a long piece of cloth of some sort, and that looks like a handle at one end. I think it may be a cat's toy. This sort is common in the West, apparently. How is that a toy for cats? Cats like to chase the band around and paw at it. Kittens in particular love that sort of play. You only need to wave it in front of them and they pounce to catch it. Ah, that sounds positively adorable. So, cat's toy.
Yes!
Yes, the thing you are trying but failing to conceal is, a cat's toy. Precisely, and the true nature of the now infamous speckled band. And it was this toy that you dangled through the ventilator. You waved it around, I presume. Naturally, the victim could not fail to notice it. But why? For what reason? My dear boy, there can be only one answer to that. After her feline friend disappeared through the ventilator into the neighboring cabin, Miss Pavlova attempted to use the speckled cat's toy to incite the creature to return. In summary, the nature of this friend of Miss Pavlova, which last night infiltrated the scene of the crime, is a blithesome Russian blue breed of cat by the name of Darka. Kya! A truly troublesome feline young Darka is proving to be. She must be caged once found. You'll forgive us for borrowing the photograph of your pet, Miss Pavlova. The photograph of Miss Pavlova and Darka have been entered into the court record. It was after I gave her food last night. That's when it happened. She scratched the back of my hand and then ran up the bell cord. Before I could do anything, she had disappeared through the ventilator. Darka, she is so naughty. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter, the grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? According to the data of which I have been appraised, it would appear that there were no visible signs of injury. Ah. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom. That one's not correct. Mr. Sholmes says it's true there were no signs of a wound anywhere on Kazuma-san's body, that's right, but Mr. Sholmes seems to be unaware of one very important detail. Kazuma wasn't poisoned. Yes, it would seem so. Let's give him the information he's missing now, which would be the Postmortem Report. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by the Postmortem Report. Yes, I knew it was one or the other. His neck was... Indeed, the breaking of the cervical vertebrae is fatal. Only that Goliath would be strong enough to survive that. Seaman Stroganov isn't some immortal freak, you know. The jury is out. Anyway, we have on good authority that the victim's neck was broken. Now, if we take that as fact, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be? Yes, an examination of the deceased's body will prove the cause something something. Kazuma died because his neck was broken. In other words, he was probably struck by something or someone. Yes, that's a distinct possibility. As of yet, no weapon has been found, though. Presumably Darka didn't silently creep up behind Kazuma and deal him a fatal blow. I suppose it's possible that he had a fall and hit the ground awkwardly. It could have been a terrible act of misfortune that he broke his neck completely by accident. A bad fall could explain it. It's rather hard to believe of Kazuma-sama, though. He wasn't a clumsy man. Well, we need to fix this deduction somehow. Is there anything from the scene that could explain what happened? Well, it would probably be the mark on the floor, right? Yes, an examination of the mark on the floor will prove the cause of death conclusively. This particular mark, so prominently visible next to the victim's body, is a deposit of shoe polish. Shoe polish? Indeed, positively identified by a little analysis device I constructed, which I carry now as a matter of course. Beeswax, tallow, and dye were my results, the undeniable ingredients of shoe polish. And the color of the polish is a perfect match to the color of Mr. Asogi's laced leather shoes. Looking at this mark, it's not hard to imagine what happened. For some reason, Mr. Asogi must have caught his foot at that point in the floor and tripped. Please, no. And by a dreadful turn of misfortune, caught his neck against some immovable object as he fell to the floor, suffering a fatal blow to the spine. The victim's vertebrae shattered, and in that instant, he lost his leg. I don't know. I don't know anything about this. Is that really true, Miss Pavlova? What about the evidence left at the scene where Mr. Asogi lost his life? Yes, the facts are as clear as day to me. Did all you could to conceal the incriminating evidence. But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links your victim in that traveling case. I don't believe it. Kazuma-sama merely tripped over and now he's no more? It can't be true, I refuse to accept it. I know it's hard to believe, but the mark on the floor does seem to suggest that's what's happening. But this part of Mr. Sholmes' deduction is right. Miss Pavlova is trying to hide some evidence that would prove it. Here in this cabin, somewhere in the direction that she just cast her eyes. Where, I wonder? Let's have a good look around. The answer must be here somewhere. So it's not the traveling case. I mean, the tiara seems like a wastepaper basket? This is a wastepaper basket. Perhaps all the first-class cabins have them. But Miss Pavlova only started a I am getting, like, totally tongue-tied here. Miss Pavlova only started occupying this cabin late last night. Presumably, there's not much rubbish in there yet. Oh, what's that? It's a broken piece of glass, isn't it? Yes, it is. And I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. If it looks familiar, perhaps it's more than your mind simply playing tricks on you.
Yes!
That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that wastepaper basket. Aha! Here we have a fragment of some intricate glass object, it would seem. One that has a familiar air, in fact. Precisely, we found another piece of broken glass on the floor in Mr. Asogi's cabin. And as you can see, the two pieces fit together perfectly. Oh no! So, Miss Pavlova, shall we consider what this tells us? Why would it be that part of this glass object, which was evidently broken at the scene of the victim's death, should be found in the wastepaper basket of your cabin? Kia! You're well acquainted with this glass bell, are you not? I don't know if that hushed Russian accent of yours won't save you this time, dear girl. Why? Because we have conclusive evidence linking you to the bell in question. Take it away, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. The evidence linking Miss Pavlova and the little glass bell, that would be... this picture of a cat!
Yes!
If you look at this photograph, you can clearly see, hanging from Darka's collar, the very glass bell in question. The truth has caught up with you, Miss Pavlova. The young man who lost his life last night did so after a truly inauspicious fall. And the cause of that fateful stumble? Your absent feline friend, Darka. I couldn't tell anyone. I'm sorry. Death by tripping over a cat. Deduction complete. Elementary. So we're actually like over time here, but I kind of feel like we're coming up on the end of this, so let me just like see if we can keep going. Why don't you tell us now, Miss Pavlova? Tell us exactly what happened last night. It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was so late, but I hadn't had time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands. People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments. It's true. She was so fast she disappeared through that ventilator before I could stop her. And that is how you acquired the rather nasty wound on the back of your hand, I take it. Yes, and I had read the rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darka with me. Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It's a precaution, really. So I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the next cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point, we thought it safe to try to lure the kitten back again by dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator and into the adjoining cabin. Darka always loves this toy, but it didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy. I tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return. So the faint whistling sound Cosimo wrote about in his diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pet. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened. Yes, so there was nothing else I could do. I just had to wait until she had calmed down. But then... I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out, and then, oh, it was such a dreadful bang. Then afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent. Cosimo was. From the appearance of the brown mark on the floor, it seems likely that what you heard was the victim stepping on the glass bell and tripping up. The SS Burya is a large vessel, but even she can pitch and roll violently without warning. If Mr. Asugi was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching when the kitten got under his feet, a combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. But what became of the kitten afterwards? In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the ventilator. Yet Darka is nowhere to be seen. I must have forgotten to lock my case, and now she's disappeared again. Gracious, that cat is as insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself, at least. When I woke this morning, I heard that a young man in the cabin next to mine had died, but I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared. Scared that they would send me back. Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? You're right, where is it? If the snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it and where did it come from? What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing on board this ship? Oh, I didn't say? Snake is my friend. His name is Birosko. What? That snake belongs to you? He escaped from cage when emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. I did not expect to find him in here. Guess how did that snake get into this cabin? Yes, but animals are not permitted on board. Ah, we are at sea for 1 year. You want to be so long without close friend? Without someone who understands? Couldn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my dear burly fellow, a gargantuan venomous snake? Surely you can appreciate the danger you're putting everyone in. No venom. Birosko does not have venom. He is harmless, very long but very gentle. He is adorable like Granny. It's venomless? Yes, now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood, but once I feed him, you'll see big smile. And you feed him what? Milk, I suppose? Like they say they milk chickens, ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. Birosko eats mouses, big fat round mouses. Oh, so is that what the mousetrap in the passageway out there is for? Of course, how else can I catch my friend's favorite food? Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now. It refuses to drink milk, it can't hear a whistle, it can't climb up a bell cord, and it's not even venomous. How the deuce did something so inept land a starring role? It's not my fault, I do not make up stories. My Birosko had nothing to do with this incident. So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. But then why the Russian on the ground? Are we going to get to figure that out now? Miss Pavlova? I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, and I do sympathize, but please remember this. A young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then... no matter the circumstances, I cannot forgive you. But... what are you talking about, Miss Mikitova? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. It was just a series of unfortunate events, an accident. I'm no great detective like Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth, but even I can see that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure of it. I just can't quite put my finger on it. I confess. I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issues on this matter. Oh. I am only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. A distraction? I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Ah, not again. When did he do that? Especially as they are on your wrist as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port of call. You were, Mr. Sholmes. Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours, was he not? Yes. Kazuma was my closest friend. I owed him my freedom even. that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. So are we going to get, like, testimony? Is that a thing? The truth about how you really died, about how the scene in your cabin really came to be. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. So then, shall we begin? Yes. What we should ponder first is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. Was this truly an unfortunate accident, or was there in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. Well, we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident. Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm gonna have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right here in Cosmo's cabin, it's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. I think it's the Russian writing, right?
Yes!
The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. That script, it's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language. Japanese in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. I don't think so. That doesn't seem very likely. It's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry, what do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There is no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor, and the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Ah! Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything. Because he was already dead. That is not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there. What Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So Susano-san has noticed too then. Putting his message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident. Let me review the scene here because I actually can't tell what they're talking about. I would guess the mark on the floor? This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. That's the glass bell the kitten had around its neck. We already know all about that. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell, so we already have a satisfactory explanation for the flaw in that logic. Unfortunately, there is a very big flaw, a fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Ah. Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in the waste paper basket. Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova? Oh no, both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asugi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Kia! Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Asugi's. You are wasting time. Someone else was there? Duh, of course, we know this. What are you talking about? Bulkhead was bolted shut from the inside. There was no way in or out. Oh, yes. And one other person in the cabin when young student died was you. It's true I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about that detail. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I could have left that message. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details. Would you mind? Ah ha 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 ha. Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor, in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. And then that same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen to the floor, for fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Asugi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Leaving half behind was always going to raise questions. Yes, well, it was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. A single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light onto the floor there. Little wonder then that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. You all suspect me, don't you? Seaman Stroganov. Nina is woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago they noticed her dancing skills and they went to join ballet company, but before she was dancer on this ship, a member of ship's band. We do not accuse ship's angel of being criminal, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. If that is not possible, I give my tooth. Well, this is all most interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You are a great detective, you should know. Look truth in eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin, not Nina, not anyone. Or you want to tell me that killer can walk through locked doors and yet it's impossible? That's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around door latches so they can open and close them from the outside. We've been over this. Thread, are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship, constructed of heavy steel with not a gap in sight. No threads or needles or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too, but Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so... Susano-san, how could you shift it onto me like that? Seaman Stroganov has a valid point. Cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see that the traces of the method I have in mind have been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside? One way does spring to mind, yes. You really know what Mr. Sholmes means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you, because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So, would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling sign of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolt across from the outside. It's the books, right?
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right, it's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe yes. It's what's known as the force of inertia acting on the objects. Is there nothing Susano-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book at least? Well, whatever it's called, it's the same force that pushed over those books in the bookcase. Also made something else in this cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We'd come into this cabin not long before and we hadn't bolted the door. But then... Hello, is anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance. Inspector Hosanaga! Oh yes, that's it. When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across the locked door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or the force of inertia, if you want to call it that. I'm trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asagi was killed, the SS Burya made another emergency stop. When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments, it was almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over. Oh yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I? Then when we came into this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Asagi's cabin. Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova? Are you out of your mind? You say Burya made emergency stop? It does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room? Oh, it is simple enough. Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside, used to trigger the emergency alarm? Oh yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there, telling you only to press the button in times of emergency. On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. Sort of button. One is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Wait, it was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interest of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings and the vessel comes to a complete stop. As indeed it did a little earlier today. Mr. Sholmes, surely it wasn't you who... As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. To be pressed, whatever the occasion. He sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with ship, I report you to Captain, you are in much trouble now. Now, I'm sure all that can wait until later. Let's not overlook the fact that we have now learned a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin doors slide closed. So what we must now consider, it all comes down to one thing now. Last night, after what happened to Mr. Asagi, did this ship make an emergency stop? Or did it not? You are idiots. Burya is a huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop, even in the middle of night, there would be chaos everywhere. What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea. Really? What evidence, Mr. Naruhodo? Fascinating. Do show us, my good man. What evidence promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel last night? The fact that there are no ship's log updates after about 2. Seaman Stroganoff. It's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, is that right? That is correct. Why? In the ship's log here, that would be where you record the details of your duties. What are you doing with that? That is mine. You rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with a mind to return it to you later. I left it there on purpose, that's where I put it always. Point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances you write the phrase "nothing to report" every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until the first light this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log? That is, because nothing happened. But if nothing happened, you would normally write "nothing to report," wouldn't you? Indeed so, which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened here aboard the SS Beria. Something sufficiently significant to make you forget to fill in the ship's log, in fact. Are you suggesting that the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of the night? Stop talking rubbish. If I'm perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh, why? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened, surely all of us would have noticed. That's very true. Thanks to the emergency stop we experienced earlier, we all know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently and the alarm bell was so loud, I can't imagine that anybody would sleep through that, even if it had happened in the dead of night. Well, no, that's a good point. Unless we all hit our heads. What of the throbbing? Sorry, what do you mean? Your head, man. The throbbing of your head since this morning. We have all suffered with it. Oh, yes, I have had a headache, you're right. In fact, I haven't been feeling myself since I woke up today. Nor have I. My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn. Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you, just as I suspected. He's right, my head's been throbbing today too. And since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. Then the first thing I noticed this morning was the throbbing pain in my head. I had already been dragged out of the wardrobe and had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all that was happening to me? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, you boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, well, yes, sorry. Stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Oh, well, Kazuma looked after me. He was always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yes, in fact, I had all of that. Kazuma wasn't fond of chicken. Oh really, so the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? That's right, he didn't touch it. Is that relevant? My dear fellow, does that not strike you? Oh, Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say that there was something wrong with the chicken? I do. No. Really? Is that really true? The meal prepared for the passengers last night had been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific, designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consumed it. A sleeping drug? Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug so that no one would notice the ship's emergency stop? Mr. Naruhodo, of course that's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea. Precisely. Placing every meal on every passenger on board with a soporific drug would be impossible, unless that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator. What? Mr. Sholmes? Well, Seaman? Eh? I'm sorry to say that any more deception in this matter will get you nowhere. If you refuse to talk, there would have to be an inquiry made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew, and the captain himself, would be hauled over the coals for aiding and abetting a renegade. Please, no more. I will tell everything. Eh? I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore. These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe. Yes, so when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me. We all agreed to help everyone together. She threw away everything, her fame in the ballet, Mother Russia, and wanted to help our angel. I don't believe it. You are right, we put sleeping drug in chicken last night. As I remember now, I did notice chewing on a lump of something strange and bitter at one point. We could not make all drug, how do you say, dissolve. Talk about heavy seasoning. At midnight in waters near Shanghai, we brought our angel on board. She was helped by a comrade on shore with a small fishing boat. While all the passengers slept soundly, thanks to the almost magical effect of the slumber-inducing potion their evening meals had contained. So that's what happened. The only people awake on the ship last night were the crew, people who dislike chicken, and the newly boarded passenger, Miss Pavlova. And that means it would have been possible for you. You could have used the emergency stop trick to lock Cosmo's cabin door. But how does that make sense? Surely every cabin door would have ended up locked in that case, and there would have been complete chaos. Oh, I wouldn't say so. What? Ah, of course. Just like us, all the other passengers would have eaten their evening meal of chicken in their cabins. After which they would have been overwhelmed by tiredness because of the sleeping drug. Quite. And accordingly, all passengers were already in their cabins for the night. Yes. The overwhelming majority of passengers would habitually sleep with their cabin doors bolted anyway, and so not one of them would have found it remarkable to find the door locked in the morning. In summary, in order to fasten the bolt of a single cabin door on the ship, the culprit brought the entire vessel to an emergency stop in the early hours of the morning. You have talked a long time and said many things. What is point? Point is what I said earlier. There was somebody else present on the scene when the victim lost his life last night. Someone who left a message in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate another. Someone who tried desperately to hide the broken fragment of glass that would reveal the culprit's identity. And someone who abused the ship's emergency stop procedure in order to lock a door. All told, a busy night. But, I don't know about any of this. I am just a little girl. You like to speak with your long English words and explain your clever ideas. But I am sailor, and sailors don't listen to long, boring stories. We don't believe. Sailors like me, we trust only what we see with our eyes. A laudable trait. What? I am quite of the same disposition, my good man. Observation to me is everything. Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, yes? Do you hear it? That accusatory cry of guilt on the wind? What accusatory cry of guilt? Sorry, you've lost me. Proof of involvement, man. But you can't hear such a call with your ears. No, you must hear it with your eyes. Your observation is the basis of all deductions. What are you talking about? I believe the time has come for one final logic and reasoning spectacular to expose the truth. Okay, we are like way over the usual end time of the stream, but we have to be so close to the end. I'm gonna keep going anyway. Observation, my dear fellow, just as I said. These two provocateurs. Observation, if you remember, Mr. Naruhodo, we know that somebody tried to fabricate evidence, don't we? By tampering with the scene of Mr. Asugi's death. What we're looking for is some trace of evidence that one of these two was there when it happened. Precisely, you were delightfully quick to grasp. Alright, I'll see what I can see. I'm looking for a trace of evidence that shows someone else was there the night with Cosma died. So... Oh, hello. How do I get the camera to pan so I can see it? Ink stain. Some kind of stain in an unusual place. Yes, you're right. It looks like ink, if I'm not mistaken. Ink. And look at the color, too. It's clear where that came from.
Yes!
Let's present that. Seaman Stroganoff, you seem to have quite a large purple stain on the back of your white uniform there. Yes, I don't know where the dirt comes from. So nothing in particular comes to mind about the stain? What are you trying to say? It would appear that the significance of the stain has escaped your attention. Seaman. Allow us to make it plain. It's a very large purple stain on the back of Seaman Stroganoff's uniform. And I think what made it is clear. Indeed it is. So, Mr. Naruhodo, present the evidence that proves it. My pleasure. And the evidence that proves... unless we have the actual ink from the desk, I think we present the crime scene photograph, right?
Yes!
It's this photograph and the ink it shows, that's what caused the stain on your uniform. Ink. Rather unusual color of ink, purple. The penny drops at last. Now you see the significance. The Russian word on the floor next to the victim's body was written in purple ink. And the stain on the back of your uniform is ink of exactly the same color. If the ink had been dry, it couldn't possibly have stained your uniform in that way, which means you must have been present in the cabin in the moments immediately after the ink was spilled. Alright, yes, it was me, I did it. Everything. I arranged everything in Dead Student's cabin to make it look like the wardrobe man did it. Then I pressed button to make Furia do emergency stop and bolt cabin door shut. I did everything so no one would suspect our angel. Biff, please. Don't worry, Angel, let me do talking. It was after 1 in the morning. I was on duty patrolling passageway. Then our angel came to me. She was white like sheet. Biff, please, you must help me. I went with her. The door to cabin number 1 was open. When I looked inside, I saw Student Boy on the floor. Please don't tell anyone. My little one, my little furry friend. Everything that happened in cabin is like Angel told you. The kitten escaped through the ventilator into Mr. Asugi's cabin, then he tripped over it and broke his neck when he fell to the floor. Yes, that is right. So after the incident, when the cat ran away, Miss Pavlova then visited the cabin next to hers, only to find its occupant lying lifeless on the floor. She said she was worried when she heard sound of something falling on the floor. That's when she went to look. No, Angel? The door was not locked, so she opened to look, and You already know what happened after. There's just one thing, if you wouldn't mind. What? When you went to Mr. Osugi's cabin, Miss Pavlova, was he already dead? Why? I already told you when Nina opened door of student's cabin and looked inside, I was asking Miss Pavlova. Well, Miss Pavlova? I think that's da for yes. Yes, that is right. I saw him, it was dark, and he was wearing black, but he was on the floor, not moving. I was scared. I understand and I believe you. So is that finally it now? Have we discovered the real truth about Kazuma's death at last? Ah, something very nearly slipped my mind. Oh, Mr. Sholmes? This photograph? Yes, I took this myself, you know. The cause of death was a broken neck. Therefore, the victim died instantly. The unfortunate incident that precipitated these events, a kitten on which the victim stumbled. However, those are the facts. There's one particular area in this photograph that seems to me somewhat unnatural. What do you mean, unnatural? What are your thoughts on the matter, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, well, Kazuma tripped and fell and by some terrible stroke of bad luck broke his neck. Part of this photographic print seems unnatural. That's actually a great question. Shouldn't there be a bruise at the back of his neck? Is his fist clenched around something? What's the history? Kazuma tripped and fell and by some terrible stroke of bad luck broke his neck. Which part of the print seems unnatural?
Yes!
I'll start by presenting his neck. Must be here, surely. Allow me to offer you a piece of advice in pursuit of detection. When noting a crucial point, it can be helpful to keep your eyes open. They were open. And it can be equally helpful to use them. Sorry, I'll try that. I think it's plain what Mr. Sholmes means by unnatural, isn't it? The word written in a foreign language under his fingertip, surely. That particularly crass detail was orchestrated by the culprit. Now I mean to identify another point. Imagine, if you will, losing your footing yourself. Would you land as the victim has? What of your hands? Oh, I got it. You look like the sort of fellow who stumbles with some regularly. So his hand is balled in a fist. That was my next guess. Alright, if you really fell due to an unfortunate accident, then this fist just doesn't seem quite right. The exact same thought occurred to me. In fall, one's instinct is to open the palms flat. Yet here we see the victim with his left hand tightly balled into a fist, almost you might say, as though he were gripping something. What do you mean? Simply that I took the liberty of investigating the victim's fist a short while ago. And what, pray, do you imagine I found there, my dear fellow? Mr. Sholmes, show us, please. Why, of course, my dear madam, why do I keep you in suspense? This is what I found. Oh, a crescent moon with a little gemstone in the middle. Yes, you're right, a crescent moon. It's very pretty, but what does it tell us? It tells us nothing. I'm not so sure that crescent moon looks. It looks familiar somehow. Sure, we've seen it somewhere before. Observation, Mr. Naruhodo, that is the key. What? The truth is now tantalizingly close. How did that crescent moon come to be in Kazuma's clenched fist? Find a clue, the last piece of the puzzle. Ask yourself, what does this little crescent moon mean? What significance does it have? And observe. Find the answer with your own eyes. Ah, her right ear.
Yes.
Miss Pavlova, I noticed that on your ear, even though you have a metal earring, the decorative part of it seems to be missing. The little link holding it together must have broken, I suppose. Eh? What? But looking at your other ear, I notice a crescent moon. Ah! I don't believe it. Now, the missing crescent moon was found in the victim's clenched fist. Clearly, there is only one logical conclusion. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes. Miss Pavlova, Mr. Asugi must have grasped that crescent moon and pulled it from your ear, perhaps just moments before he fell to the floor. In other words, last night in Mr. Asugi's cabin, you witnessed the moment where the victim fell with your own eyes. In fact, you were quite literally an arm's length from him. But then the question is, why did Mr. Asugi do that? Why did he pull your earring from your ear and hold it in his clenched fist during his final moments? Angel? No one can protect you now. Please, Miss Pavlova, tell us the truth. Last night, what did you do to Kazuha? Ah. H-E something. It looked like it might have been Russian. Like a Russian word stretched out. When I think about everything that happened yesterday, it was too much. Running away the fishing boat in the middle of the night, trying to climb onto this huge ship. And then, when I was at last in this cabin and I could relax after this horrible long day, the situation with Darka happened. I couldn't believe it when she disappeared through the ventilator. Tried to call her with a little whistle. I tried waving her favorite toy, but nothing worked. Darka would not come back. What are you doing here at this time of night, Inspector? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was a friend of mine. A young man from your country, he was very polite and kind. He helped me to find Darka, and he promised not to tell anyone. But then, when I had my friend in my arms again and I was going to leave the man's cabin... Just a moment, sorry, but... Oh yes, I'm sure I know your face. I've seen you somewhere before. Of course. You're Nikolina Pavlova, aren't you? The Russian ballerina? No, I don't know that name. My heart nearly stopped when he said that. He knew who I was. How could this man from a land in the faraway east know a Russian ballerina? Yes, I saw your performance in Japan. The beauty of the ballet made a deep impression on me. But, what are you doing on this ship? I'm sure I read that your ballet company was performing in Shanghai at the moment. I can't fool him. I have to tell him the truth and hope he doesn't tell anyone. I have no other choice. I see. So you've run away. Please, please keep my secret. Don't tell anyone. Give me a moment. I could use another opinion here. He's going to pull that cord. He's going to tell the captain. Why did I think I could trust him? Then it happened. Everything at once. It was only a second, but it felt like forever. Wait, I shouted, and then... Darka jumped out of my arms and down to the young man's feet. And as he turned around to look at me, I pushed him. I don't even know why. I don't know why I did it. I was just so scared, and I had to stop him from telling anyone about me. And that's when you went to fetch help from Seaman Stroganov, who was on duty in the passageway. I heard Nina cry out and thud on the floor, so I ran to her. She was standing at the cabin door, shaking like a leaf. She looked at me and said, "Help me, Biff. If they find out, I will be. Please, I have nowhere to go." You decided to help. And that's when you arranged things in Kazuma's cabin to make it look like I did it, so that no one would suspect the passenger in the cabin next door. Yes. I went into cabin and I looked around to make sure there was nothing to show that Nina was there, and then I found the stowaway, the wardrobe, still sleeping. Right, that's when he found me. So he worked out a plan to lay the blame on the stowaway. I closed wardrobe doors and put back strange paper sign. Luckily for me, that's the only reason Susano-san started to believe me when I said I was innocent. I dragged young man's body to a good place and used ink that was spilled right on the floor. I wrote, wardrobe. And tell me, what of the glass bell? It was by my feet, so I picked it up. I see. But it was dark in the cabin, I didn't notice the other half. Then Angel went back to her cabin and I finished job by pressing the emergency alarm button in the passageway. Yes. Accordingly, the SS Beria did indeed come to an emergency halt a little after 2 a.m., thus enticing the bolt on the cabin door to slide shut, creating the locked room mystery. There's still one thing I don't understand, Miss Pavlova. What? Well, you said that you told Kazuma about the fact that you'd run away from your homeland. It's because you were worried he was going to tell the captain that you pushed him. Isn't that right? Yes, but even if he had pulled the bell cord and called for the captain of the ship, aren't you friends with every member of the crew? Why would that have been a problem? It was what he said first that made me scared. What he said first... What are you doing here at this time of night, Inspector? Oh. He said an inspector was his friend. Ah, yes, meaning me, who was supposed to be acting as his bodyguard. I thought that if police knew about me, they would arrest me. I keep thinking this is almost done. Before we could pull bell cord, may I stop you a moment, please, Miss Pavlova? It just doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, was Mr. Asogi really going to pull the bell cord? I don't know. What? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I'm not Kazuma, so I can't know for certain, but... he was a man of his word. If he told you he wouldn't give your secret away, then he wouldn't have done. No, he was walking over to it, he was going to pull the cord, he was going to make them send me back. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, the day's work is not done yet. It seems there is one more deduction to make. Another deduction? Okay, like, I know this case is basically over, but we are an hour past ending time. If there is, like, more things to this, I gotta put it off to next week. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I will see you on Wednesday for more Persona 4, and then probably on the weekend, too. Because this weekend's stream yesterday did really well, so I'm probably going to keep doing that. And we will finish this case next week. Talk to you then.